right, we'd like to welcome everyone here to our city council meeting. It is nice to see so many bodies here, so thank you for coming here in person, and all those who are watching us in TV land. I've asked Bennett Gordon to give us our spiritual thought and prayer, so if he'd like to come up.
Alrighty, I'm Bennett Gordon. I'm the son of Councilman Brandon Gordon. I'm going to share a message today about addressing mental illness. To make a long story short, I've been battling mental illness for about the last 7 years. Since the age of 12, I've dealt with OCD and anxiety, and instead of addressing it and getting better, kept my problems to myself. I was afraid of opening up about my illnesses because I felt as if I was the only one going through it. And I was worried about being misunderstood and called crazy. Fast forward about 7 years, and I accepted a call to serve an LDS mission, to the Syracuse, New York mission. I had a strong desire to serve the Lord for the next 2 years, but I knew deep down I wasn't mentally fit to go out at that time. And again, instead of reaching out for help before my mission, I decided I would just hide it and just tough my way through it. Everyone thought my life was sunshine and rainbows on the outside. I only ever showed my strengths to others because I was too prideful to show my weaknesses. As I went out in the mission field, my mental illnesses were the worst they had ever been. I was angry with my trials and wondered why God would make me suffer when I was trying to serve. I was broken. I prayed all night asking God, what is it I should do? As I prayed, I had the thought come to me, be vulnerable. Ether 12:27. Ether 12:27 from the Book of Mormon reads, and if men come unto me, I will show unto them their weakness. I give unto men weakness that they may be humble. And my grace is sufficient for all men that humble themselves before me. For if they humble themselves before me and have faith in me, then will I make weak things become strong unto them. God, through this trial, humbled me up. So I decided to reach out to my mission president and parents for help. The decision was made that I should be sent home to figure out some medication and therapy. So now here I am, working on my mental health and asking for help. As I asked for help, I came to find out that my mother struggles with the same things, as well as many of her family members. I realized that I was not the only one. God made us imperfect beings. I'm starting to understand that it's okay to be broken. And because I have been broken, I can help others who are going through the same trials as me. So my message to those of you who are struggling with a mental illness and don't know what to do, learn from my experience and address mental illness. Just as you would take care of a broken leg, take care of your broken mind. You are not alone. God and His Son, Jesus Christ, will help you through your trials as well as so many loving people on this earth. If you don't feel that you can talk to anyone about your problems, talk to me. I truly believe that God gives us trials to help others through that same trial. Just as my mom has helped me through this trial, I want to help anyone else. Anybody from the city of Spanish Fork. And so, as a city of Spanish Fork, let's continue to love everyone. You never know what someone is going through, so let's all continue to put Christ into Christianity and do as He did. John 13:34 through 35 reads, a new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another, as I have loved you, that ye also love one another. By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if ye have love one to another. I'm beyond blessed and grateful to have been born and raised in Spanish Fork. Best people on God's green earth live in Spanish Fork, and I'm proud to call this place my hometown. God bless Spanish Fork. And to start the meeting, I'll just say a quick prayer. Our dear, kind, gracious Heavenly Father, we're grateful for this day. We're so grateful for the opportunity to be together today for a city council meeting and be able to better our town and better our community. Father in heaven, we're so grateful for Thy Son's atoning sacrifice and everything that He went through so that we could be here and do what we're doing today. Father in heaven, we love Thee very much, and and we strive to become like thee. And say these things humbly in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Brandon. Or Bennett. Little Brandon.
His middle name, right?
Did awesome. Thank you. I've asked Councilman Gordon to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Would the audience please rise and repeat the pledge after me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
Okay. Let's move down to public comments, and I'd like to invite Holly Sweeten up. She's from Congressman Owen's office, so if she'd like to come up and address us first.
Hey everyone, so I'm Holly Sweeten and I am Congressman Owen's Director of Outreach. And Congressman Owens was flying back to DC today and just sends his regards and wants you to know that however we can help be a support for the success of your community, we're here. While we realize that you're represented by another congressman as well, how great that you get two congressmen who can help you to resolve issues. And, you know, we're here even if it's not perhaps a federal issue you're facing, perhaps it's a state issue, perhaps we can connect you with the right people to help. But we're just here to I'm here to provide a network and build those relationships for Congressman Owens. So I'm so happy to be here this evening and to hear from, what's your name? Bennett. Oh, that was such a great inspirational thought, and every city council should start with something like that. So I just commend you for that, those comments, and thank you. And if anyone has any questions, I can answer those really quickly. If not, I have a card if you want to get a hold of Congressman Owens at all. So.
Right. You can just give the card to Angie and then that'll get us to everybody. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
All right. Anyone else who would like to address the mayor and the council, feel free to step up there and make sure you state your name. Way to go, Holly. Scared them all away. Mm-hmm. No. All right. Let's go to council comments. Council member Beck.
Okay. Ben, I just want to say thank you for your remarks. I think it was courageous and it's very vulnerable to do that. And I think we're all if we're not dealing with it, we have loved ones that are dealing with a mental health issue. And I love that you brought that up and made it so just front and center, so thank you. A couple of my assignments recently, Youth City Council, we met for the first time last week since October. So the youth were super excited to be together and they look forward to helping at the Easter egg hunt. And during our meeting, the mayor of the Youth City Council said 1 year ago today, Seth Parents, our city manager, was in here. Do you remember Seth? Kind of just, talking to the youth, and he received a text, church is canceled this Sunday. Then they started talking about the very next day, school was canceled, and here we are a year later. So last week was a big milestone for many of us, and I think we can see a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's pretty exciting. So, and just remember, youth ages, grades 9 through 12, the applications are on our city website if your youth want to join and participate in that. And then the library, our board is still meeting virtually, and we're currently gathering information for the library summer reading program. And the library board members will help gather donations for that program to have prizes throughout all of the summer. So the application, or you can sign up to be in the reading program in May. And then the library groundbreaking ceremony for our new library hall will be on Monday, April 12th at 3 p.m. And then we are looking forward to a fall 2022 ribbon cutting. And then Miss Spanish Fork, applications are also currently online. That will be for Miss Spanish Fork 21, 22. And the applications are due April 26th. The pageant will be held on Saturday, May 29th at Spanish Fork High School. Also, the 10th annual Little Miss pageant, that is for ages 6 through 15, will be held on Thursday, May 20th, and those applications are also on the city's website. And the deadline for that will be April 15th for early registration. And I think that is all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Scopes.
Mayor, to report the South Utah Valley Animal Shelter, we had a meeting just this last week. The biggest thing of note, they had gotten rid of 2 part-time positions, created a full-time position. That increases their budget a little bit, and it will be proportionally divided amongst the member cities. And I'll push that information out to staff and to the council, so you have that. And then on Thursday we have the Utah Lake Commission meeting. Most of that's routine business, going over the legislative session, how that affected Utah Lake, and just regular business with the Phragmites and other invasive species they have at the lake. That's all I have to report.
Great. Councilman Gordon.
Thank you, Mayor. On behalf of the garbage district, they wanted me to report back that the load leveling that we did as cities to, and many of us have felt the day pick up, perhaps the numbers at the transfer station over the last couple weeks, and now every day they're within literally 5 to 10 tons of each other, where before Monday was just a tough day. And so on behalf of them, they asked that you for the patience and the being willing to accept the new program. We know it's a couple of years before our new transfer station is built, and able to accept, more than like our Mondays before. If they hit over 1,000 tons, it was just piled outside, and you pile recycling outside, and it gets rained on that day. Well, it's gone, right? It's ruined. It's contaminated, and so a lot of good things happening with that, and just appreciate everyone's willingness and acceptance of that. Wanted to mention that a few weeks ago, maybe even close to a month ago, since we met, we didn't meet 2 weeks ago as a council, so a few of us were in this room for a meeting, a long interview process, trying to decide who will be the contractor to build our new transfer station, when one of our very own had an issue that we needed to call the ambulance for, and just the quick response time, professionalism by our public safety department. I was so impressed with how quickly the ambulance was here, because it felt like a very long time. That individual's in a good spot now, and so, Brandon, if you'll just please mention back to the public safety and those involved that that's my shout out to and the first responders, our ambulance crew. They do a tremendous job. So thank you to you, and thanks for your work. Really appreciated you taking the time tonight for that. Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Great. Councilman Argyle.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, thank you. That's not an easy thing to do, to get up and admit your weaknesses, and good luck to you in the future. Also, would just like to report on the airport board meeting. During that meeting, we reviewed some proposals for another FBO down at the airport. I think there's 3 and maybe even a 4th that's joining along those lines, and also joining with the Gail Halverson Museum that is going to be built at the airport, to try to help further that along and complete that with the museum and the things that they want to do. It's some unique and neat things that they're offering to the Spanish Fork City Airport, and excited to see some of them things come to fruition. And I'm sure that we'll probably be hearing about some of those and seeing some of those proposals. Chris probably seen them also. Changes our airport a whole bunch to turn it into just kind of, when you drive down Main Street, there's just a dirt field, and that turns it into some productive businesses and that support the airport, and other businesses that support flying and those kind of things that take place. Anyway, that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Great, thank you. First of all, thank you, Bennett. Appreciate the courage it took to get up there and say that. You know, I've always loved you, man, and I appreciate you. So we're all here for you. I want you to know that. So we've got a big event coming tomorrow. As you see up on the screen, we got the Spanish Fork Hospital virtual ribbon cutting. And so this is kind of a big deal here for Spanish Fork. It's been a long time coming. We've been wanting to see this hospital come here in Spanish Fork way back when, before the hospital went to Payson. My father was on the committee to get it to come here to Spanish Fork. Obviously, they chose to go somewhere else, and so it's a great honor to be able to get that hospital here that he was so adamant about back there a million years ago. So we're pretty excited. So you can go watch this ribbon cutting. I think there's a link to it. I'm not sure, but there'll be the ribbon cutting tomorrow, and then it'll open on April 4th for full service. So we're so excited to have this hospital. It'll be a great asset to our city as we continue to grow here in our area, trying to always make things better here in Spanish Fork, and so we're pretty excited about this. Okay, we'll go now to Spanish Fork 101, the Great Shakeout. So Trevor Speriel is going to lead us through this, so go ahead. Yeah, right up there.
So this is Trevor Sperry. He's our emergency preparedness manager for Spanish Fork City. He's been here almost a year, so he came in at just the right time. His office is next to mine. I work closely with Trevor. He's instrumental for the city. He's made a lot of contacts. I told him when he started, I know nothing about emergency preparedness. I'm a police officer, and I said, you run with it, and he has. He's worked with the hospital closely recently. And also, just prior to us coming here, we were at a house fire. He got Red Cross notified. He just has a lot of contacts, and he's been instrumental for the city. But I'll let him tell you a little bit more about himself. So, thanks, Trevor.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for letting me take a few minutes. As Brandon said, I'm Trevor Sperry. We recently came back to Utah from Northwest Colorado. Graduated from Utah Valley University in emergency management. And I've absolutely loved my time here with Spanish Fork City. And we have an upcoming exercise, the Great Utah Shakeout. I understand the city has been very, very much involved in years past, and I look forward to moving together in the near future, and especially next month in April. Our Shakeout drill is April 15th, starting at 10:15 a.m. And this over here, okay. So what is the Great Utah Shakeout? It's the single largest annual disaster drill across the nation. There are some states that do not participate due to their location, say the Midwest, who are not threatened by earthquakes, but many states do participate. We have great participation here in the state of Utah. Nearly 500,000 participants are expected this year across the Wasatch Front, and particularly 150,000 here in Utah County. So a lot of great participation, particularly from schools and churches and local government. A little bit about our situation here in Spanish Fork. You can see this map. The zone that's red colored is a high chance of liquefaction in an earthquake, which is where the soil and water mix and they lose their structure, due to the stress of an earthquake, and it basically becomes a liquid, which can be scary. Orange and yellow is a moderate chance of liquefaction, and as we get towards the canyon, it's green, which is low chance of liquefaction, though there are chances of landslides, debris flow, and obviously the red line along the mountains is the Wasatch Fault Line, and also north in the red area. Utah Seismic Commission and FEMA have recently extended the length and the depth of the fault lines that were previously noted. So there's a great need to be prepared, not only as government, but also as a community. We've put together a great planning committee for this drill. As you can see, most every department is represented here by great people. Our administration, Tyler Jacobson and Nick Porter. Finance is Jordan Hales. GIS mapping is Sean Beecher. Public safety is Brandon Anderson and Ryan Baum and myself. SFCN Brian Hayward. Community development John Little. Public Works Chris Thompson and Marlo Smith. And Parks and Rec is Bill Bushman. Great people, and have been very instrumental in our plans in building this exercise. What type of exercise are we doing this year? This is classified as a functional exercise. It's the step below the biggest exercise you can do, which is a full scale, where we have actors, people laying on the streets, things like that. We're not going to go this far this year, but the functional exercise is very effective because we create scenarios, and we can operate off of those scenarios. Each department has goals and objectives that they want to meet, and we create specific scenarios for their department, so they can make critical decisions and plans, not only for this exercise but also for a real earthquake. These are some of our goals in the city. We want to test satellite phones. We have some brand new satellite phones throughout the city. We're going to open up our EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, where we establish communication with those operating on scene, and where the decisions are made at the EOC, and also with our policy group, which is the City Council and Mayor. We're going to put a plane up in the air and check critical infrastructure, bridges, dams, the reservoir, I-15, anything critical to the infrastructure of the city.
You're not going to let Tyler get up in the airplane, are you, this year?
If he wants to, yeah.
Wasn't a good experience last time, so.
Yeah. I've been trying to reach out to local congregations to build their block captain system, so that's active and well. Local ham radio operators, our CERT team, which is the Community Emergency Response Team, which has been awakened, and it's a very active team right now. We have about 500 individuals within the city who are trained and registered, and we're looking to hold a class in the spring, a new class. The new Intermountain Healthcare is Mayor related to, and then the Nebo School District, as far as opening up shelters and reunification with students and parents. We want to establish a Joint Information Center, or a JIC, where Nick Porter, our Public Information Officer, will address the media. And we want to simulate the opening of an emergency shelter. Those are some of the goals that we want to try to address this drill. This is our EOC room layout. This is at the police station. Sean Beecher has done a great job with designing this. And all departments are covered. Seat at the table. And I won't go through all of this. According to those scenarios as well. Parks and Rec. So we'll work with the Nebo School District. Running at the Emergency Operations Center. Phones, internet, communication. We are a crucial department, as they all are. Finance, helping us account for time, labor, equipment, inventory, volunteer hours. Community development are going to assist with building inspection, particularly our emergency shelters and our schools. GIS mapping, they're going to assist with live mapping in the EOC so we can mark where the critical incidents are and where we can fix those. Just to finish up, these are some of the utilize our CERT team with. Simulated damage assessments, help with radio communications. They can help with simulated search and rescue, possibly assist with running the fire station if all our personnel are called on scene, and help with reunification and block captains. And as I mentioned, our hospital, Nebo School District, and local congregations will be very much involved. So we're looking forward to this drill. It's been 6 to 8 months in progress for our planning, and I hope it'll be a very successful year for us. So, thank you.
Thanks, Trevor. Appreciate all the work you've done. It's been a valuable asset to us. You know, that was a great hire, and we're appreciative of all you've done. So, all right, let's move on to consent items.
Motion to approve the consent items?
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilmember Beck. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Let's go to our public hearings. Ordinance Z02-21, changing the zoning designation and amending the official zoning map of Spanish Fork City for the Sheaver Law Office. Zone change. Did I pronounce that name wrong?
I think that was perfect.
Okay.
Was that perfect?
Okay, yeah. Hey, it's like my name, you know, I'll take anything there as long as they're close. Yeah, so.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. This proposal involves using a really unique zoning tool in order to potentially allow a business to locate on this property, even though they would not be meeting some of the city's fundamental development standards. Personally, I think this is a textbook example of why this tool was created a few years ago, where we have an existing structure that has been used as a home in the past. It's in an area that's been zoned potentially at least for commercial uses for quite some time. It's adjacent to commercial uses, and as I understand it, actually the home has already been retrofitted in order to work as professional office space. Now, with that being said, and Nick, can you maybe, well, let me touch on this really quickly just by way of where we're at. 174 South Main Street, so this property is on the west side of Main Street. If you're familiar with the Mexican restaurant, the yellow building, there's an apartment building next to that. Well, this property is just south of that apartment building. So that's the block that we're talking about. In my opinion, the home, let's say, that would be the office, and Nick, I'm hoping that we have a slide there. I'm not sure about exactly what we put together. You may or may not recognize this, but I think it is an absolutely beautiful structure. It seems to have been very well maintained over time. Mature trees, for example, different things that you simply can't create overnight. And as I read the development enhancement overlay, I understand the intent really to be such that a property like this could be put to a new use without maybe wrecking some of the very positive characteristics that I think the property right now enjoys, which leads to what I think is really the key deviation from our standards that would be allowed here. And incidentally, we looked at potentially presenting a similar proposal to you about a year ago, because it was less than that, for a different user to do the same thing. But you can sort of make out from this image here, that there's a driveway right here that, for example, is only 10 or 11 feet wide. So literally, that would only accommodate one-way traffic to a parking lot that would be located on the back side of the property. In this case, relative to the number of parking spaces that would be provided, that meets the city's requirement. In that way, it's different from the proposal that we had talked about before. But the two main things that the enhancement overlay is needed to accommodate, it's the idea of allowing for that one-way drive to be the way to get to and from the parking lot in the rear, versus having something that potentially is twice that size, 20 feet probably or larger, which would require a completely new driveway to be constructed on the south side of the home, require the removal of some trees, and it would really change the character of the property, and I think that whole block. And incidentally, I'll mention that with the use that we're talking about tonight, a law office, we don't expect that to be a big trip generator. We don't think there's going to be a lot of traffic coming to and from the parking lot in the rear. I believe that's how the applicant feels. So that is one thing that the DRC recommended be approved as part of this. The other is simply relative to the geometry, the width of the property. Instead of being able to have a full 18 feet of depth on parking spaces in the back with a 26-foot wide drive aisle in between and 18 feet of parking stall depth on the other side, if you could maybe picture that. And again, Nick, I'm sorry, so from this image here, I realize the line works kind of faint, but this will be a parking lot. Then on the back side of the property, this is the driveway that I was describing. But in short, instead, for example, of having a 26-foot drive aisle here between parking spaces that are oriented perpendicular to the north and south property lines, that might be more like 24 feet. And instead of having a full 10 feet of landscaping on the south side between a parking stall and a wall that will be on the south side, it's largely already there, that would be maybe more like 5 or 6 feet. So simply, in order to allow for the number of parking spaces that this use and how much of the building would be used for office space, there's that give, if you will, that would have to be permitted in terms of allowing for a little bit less depth than what otherwise would be required for your typical parking lot. It's for you to decide, but again, like I said, in my mind, this is really, you can't change the property lines. For example, at this point, it is what it is, and I really appreciate the effort that this applicant's put into getting as close as they can to meeting the requirements, and I think they're close enough that it's going to function just fine, particularly for the volume of traffic and for the amount of parking that's needed and that type of a thing. There are a couple of things that we've asked the applicant to do nonetheless. For example, should the property to the north of this redevelop, we think at that point in time it makes sense to expand that 10-foot driveway into something bigger and probably to share an access between this property and the property to the north. So the applicant, I understand, has agreed to give us a cross-access easement that would allow for that to happen 5, 10, 20 years down the road, if that ever should become an opportunity. That's very typical for us to do as a city, whether there's a deficiency in terms of a driveway width or not. And as much as anything that has to do with us wanting to see fewer points of access on a street like Main Street. So like to consolidate 2 into 1 and that type of thing where we can do. And then also, should the use of the property change, for example, like I mentioned, with this being a law office, we don't think that's going to be a big trip generator, and using a 10-foot driveway therefore, and if there are parking dimensions and things like that, we really don't think, and maybe I'll speak for myself, I really don't think that's going to be any problem at all. But it might be different with a pediatric office or an orthodontist or chiropractor or some of those types of things. So if the use should change, and rather I'll say it a little bit differently, as you can see on condition 7 in the staff report, we recommend that you include a condition that says that if the land use changes, that the new use would be subject to the reapproval of the development enhancement overlay. So in effect, at that point in time, the council would get another bite at the apple, be able to evaluate whether or not you think anything about that proposal is problematic. and we'd go forward that way. But that all being said, the Development Review Committee and the Planning Commission have both recommended that this be approved. And one of the things that I'll mention that I really appreciate, and I think this is probably a factor of the applicant being an attorney, this is a really complete application. I appreciate the supporting, reasoning that they provide and documentation and that type of a thing, which I concur with what they've suggested. So, again, we recommend that it be approved.
Great. All right. This is a public hearing, so I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Argyle, and a second by Councilman Gordon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Anyone that'd like to talk about this particular zone change, come up, and you've got 3 minutes. You notice we have the clock on. Just state your name, and anyone would like to talk about it. All right. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Scobes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any questions or comments on this? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve Ordinance Z02-21, changing the zoning designation and amending the official zoning map of Spanish Fork City for the Shriver Law Office zone change based on the findings and subject to the conditions provided in the staff report.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Beck, a second by Councilman Scobes. This will be a roll call vote. Councilman Argyle.
Aye.
Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Scobes.
Aye.
Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
That passes. I failed to mention that we're missing one of our council members tonight, Councilman Mendenhall. He's with his family on a family outing, so he's asked to be excused, and so he'll be sorely missed, but we'll excuse him. So, all right, next, Ordinance Z03-21, changing the zoning designation and amending the official zoning map of Spanish Fork City for the Sunrock industrial zone change.
Mr. Mayor, once again, thank you. This is not entirely unlike the last proposed zone change, where it involves potentially approving a fairly unique zoning tool. Everyone on the council was involved when this particular tool was created a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago now, really with this particular proposal in mind, that involves ultimately relocating a facility that's on Arrowhead Trail to property that's located in our industrial area north of the airport. As that question was discussed back then, we're actually looking at a little bit different site, one that's in very close proximity to what is being proposed now. And I'll let the applicant talk through some of the details of the location and that sort of a thing. But indeed, what's before you tonight really is a function of a part of their operation that has been a concern for us and is a concern for most communities. The only reason that this is on your agenda is the fact that as part of their operation, they use a rock crusher. I think you probably will recall that one of the main components of their operation on Arrowhead Trail involves reclaiming different types of, we call them aggregate-based products, whether it's asphalt or concrete, different things like that. It's our understanding that they don't process native material, and I'll let the applicant correct me if I have that wrong. But indeed, we'll see here in a minute that about half of their 40 or so acre site would be dedicated to the storage and reclamation of that type of material, processing and whatnot. But for the crusher, this item would not be on your agenda. It'd be approved by right. All of the other components of their proposal, the site, that is professional office building, truck storage, truck repair, maintenance, even the storage and you could say maybe vending of aggregate materials and that type of a thing, those indeed are permitted uses in our Industrial 1 zone. And as such, there's really not much oversight that we can extend. If they meet the city's requirements, the operation gets approved. So indeed, it's the crusher that we're here to talk about, in terms of that being the reason that you as the city council can impose conditions. Ultimately, you have the ability to either approve or deny what's being proposed. Again, that's just the nature of the proposal and kind of the lay of the land in terms of this indeed being a legislative act where you have a lot of discretion. Now, that being said, as we've talked about this before, it's been my opinion that this really is a very appropriate use for the location. There are a number of different things that we expect to see change in the area in upcoming months and years, and I'll let the applicant speak to some of those things as well. They're involved in most of them. Nonetheless, we acknowledge that when you start to talk about a crusher, there are concerns. As of late, we've become particularly concerned about dust and how that might impact certain things that also are kind of breaking news relative to the airport and some changes that might be happening there. So I appreciate that our airport manager is here tonight. I will say that there is ongoing dialogue relative to ensuring that fugitive dust in no way, shape, or form adversely impacts, in particular, the airport. I think we have found in the past, with the DRC's recommendation in particular to approve the zone change, the site plan has already been approved by the DRC, subject to the council approving the use of this particular overlay, that fugitive dust is not going to be a problem, particularly in as much as it comes from the rock crusher. Certainly that depends heavily on how the site's operated day in and day out, making sure that best practices are followed in terms of mitigating any dust. And again, I'll let the applicant touch on those types of things. But that all being said, it's been suggested recently that it would be helpful and that it would perhaps be reassuring for some folks in the area, particularly at the airport, if there was an additional level of oversight that the city were able to have should there ever be concerns, for example, about fugitive dust on the site. So this is a simple concept. It will take some time and some effort, I think, to really flesh out, and I think we as staff and the applicant certainly would like to engage with some other people to get their thoughts and input on an agreement that we think it is important for the applicant to enter into with the city that basically would give the city an opportunity to address any concerns with, for example, dust, should they come up down the road, versus simply to approve the project with the understanding of how they're going to operate now and with the physical measures that would be in place with the proposed site plan. And frankly, I think that is an excellent suggestion. I'm really glad that that came about, just out of the concern that what if there are problems that we had not been able to anticipate, that, for example, the best practices that are being contemplated now aren't adequate to address. And it's my understanding that the applicant's willing to participate in the development of such an agreement and to indeed execute that. So maybe to try to predict what the timing on that would look like, your next meeting's in 3 weeks. I've asked our legal counsel to help us with a lot of agreements lately, so we may or may not be ready in 3 weeks, but that might be the goal, to bring back that agreement for you to consider at that point in time. Again, as I look at it, there are a lot of things that are being done with what you'll learn more about tonight that I think really you could equate to a belt. And I think we are checking certainly the significant boxes that you would want to check in terms of how to make sure dust is not a concern. The agreement then is the suspenders, just that additional level of opportunity and protection should there be a problem. So that is indeed staff's recommendation that the proposed overlay be approved based on the finding and subject to those conditions that we have in the staff report. And if it's okay with you, I'd love to turn the time over to the applicant to let them talk through things.
Thanks, Dave. This is my clicker to go through slides. White button is the click through, and then which...
State your name.
Yeah, sorry. My name is Jared Morgan, and I'm with GWC Capital. Do I have a laser pointer as well?
Very top button is a laser. It'll appear, make a point to the right.
I'm sorry?
Kind of aim it at the screen and to the right, and it should show up as a yellow dot. There you go.
Got it. Thank you so much. Okay, my name is Jared Morgan. I'm with GWC Capital. We're a wholly owned subsidiary of Clyde Companies. Sister company to Sunrock, sister company to Geneva Rock, WW Clyde. We're a large-scale civil contractor in the state. GWC Capital is the land development team for Clyde Companies, and so over the last 2 years almost, we've had the privilege of interacting with your council as we've been talking about the Arrowhead property and talking about what the relocation project looks like for us. And we've spent a lot of time on this. If you recall, we were all on site, was it a year ago or a year and a half ago? The pandemic has really just blurred the last 12 months, but we've been talking about this for some time. We are sensitive, obviously, to our neighbors and what goes on around us. And we are good stewards of our land, and we strive to do the right thing. And our word is our bond at Clyde Companies. And, we are as high quality of an organization that I've ever been affiliated with that I know of. And so I personally, my family and I, we speak very highly of the Clydes. Candidly, the fact that what I'm about to show you all exists within the municipality of Spanish Fork City has been I wouldn't say a hurdle, but it's, as you can imagine, they have deep roots in Springville, but they're about to, and they have deep roots in Spanish Fork too. They're going to have much deeper roots in Spanish Fork after I show you what we're planning for this area. So I also just want to compliment Chris and Dave and your city staff. I've spent an immense amount of time with these two gentlemen. They are good men, and Seth is a good man, and we just have really enjoyed our interactions. And we're talking to some very high-level users for this industrial area. And we have had kickoff meetings, and they've all been very impressed with the level of professionalism and organization that your city has. And so we deeply appreciate that, and everyone that we're speaking to recruit into the area is appreciating it as well. So this is an aerial map of an industrial overlay that we have essentially mirrored with Dave and his staff as the target for a large-scale industrial park or industrial center. So everything within the red kind of boundary line there is not all controlled by Clyde, although we're hoping to control all of it or most of it in order to bring on an industrial park. If you go up and down the Wasatch Front, you have a hard time finding something this special, something that is an assemblage like this that can attract high-level users to the region. That's our target here. In fact, we have already entered into an agreement with, and we're under contract with a buyer, high-profile buyer for this 80 acres here that is owned by Clyde Companies. Well, it's actually owned by GWC Capital, and we're under contract now on that piece, and they're already designing a large-scale site plan for that 80 acres. If you recall, a year ago, we were talking about Sunrock being located here on the southern portion of our 80 acres. The reason why we've moved them and acquired this piece is because we have a much better opportunity to land a better tenant if we have what we're referring to as a super pad. So this is a super pad for an industrial user, and we needed more acreage than just the 40 acres north of Sunrock. So we acquired that piece, and we've shifted them to the west. In doing so, we've entered into a pretty impressive public-private partnership that we have enjoyed the process over the last really 6 months with Chris Thomas and his team. Michael Clark has been instrumental in helping us devise a plan for this region, and we are about to enter into $13 or $14 million CMGC contract with the three parties being the SSD, GWC Capital, and Spanish Fork City to bring on all of the needed infrastructure to facilitate a park of this size. We've been interacting with every single one of your departments and feel very confident in our ability to move forward and perform at a high level here. And that's kind of paving the way for the SSD, and really our first user in the area will be Sunrock, quickly followed by a user on this 80 acres here. You'll see in the next week or two, well, probably in 2 weeks, you'll see an annexation petition already signed to annex this portion of unincorporated Utah County into your municipality. So this acreage here, we have an annexation petition coming your way, and we've been working with Dave's office on that. We will also be looking at annexing portions of these properties here that are within unincorporated Utah County. We're under contract on a number of parcels over here as well. And so we continue to try and work with neighboring property owners to pick up their property and help us realize this vision here. Since we presented last year, the site plan has really changed quite significantly for Sunrock. You're looking at Sunrock's new headquarters, which is going to be located, sorry, I'm having a funky time with this thing here. Located here in the northwest corner of the site is the current footprint of the new commercial office building. So we have the executive team, the president of Sunrock, and the executive team of SunPro, the president of SunPro. They will be headquartered here on this site, which for us is a big deal because having that that level of employment here, along with a state-of-the-art shop in the back, we feel like this is a perfect kickoff into the industrial park and adds a lot to the integrity of and caliber of park that we're looking at. We have about 20 acres in the, looking at the site plan, 20 acres on the west side of the site plan will be really the utilization of the office, and the shop in the back, and then semi-truck traffic and vehicular traffic will also be, parking here on the west side. On the east side of the property is where the crushing operation or recycling operation will be occurring. So please remember that what is happening currently and what we're permitted to do on the 80 acres off Arrowhead where we're at right now is not going to be happening here from a mining standpoint. This is not an area that we are mining. This is an area of staging, and this is an area of recycling. And we feel like we've done a very good job of mitigating any dust issues, particularly as it pertains to vehicular traffic and semi-truck traffic. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to go back to this slide. It'll help you with the site plan a little bit better. There's a brand new right-of-way being built here. This is 600 West, and this is going to be the western boundary line of the SSD. Our eastern boundary line. Brand new right-of-way. This is a 90-foot right-of-way that we are building as a part of the CMGC contract. There's also a 90-foot right-of-way that we're building here along the southern portion of the property. That is a major right-of-way. That is also a part of the CMGC contract. We're also enhancing 800 West here along the west side of Sunrock's property. That will be fully improved for Sunrock and 800 West, which will greatly enhance 800 West here. All semi-truck traffic is going to be instructed to enter and exit off of 600 West. The way that they will get to the interstate is either going to be up 600 West over to 400 South, or they're also going to be able to come down 600 West where we're connecting to 3000 North, and they will be able to access Main Street here and in the future get to 2700 interchange with UDOT. So that is how the traffic pattern is going to be working on the site. All vehicular traffic is likely going to be coming from SR 77 down 800 West and utilizing the office space here. Anywhere in white that you're seeing called out, that is an asphalted right-of-way. Anywhere in gray that you're seeing, that is recycled asphalt. This was a big point of discussion last year with you as we were talking about dust mitigation. Half of the site is asphalted, and then any primary roads within the stockpile area, which will likely have one that kind of comes along the exterior or the periphery of the stockpiles, that will also be a recycled asphalt product. In the Planning Commission meeting that we had 2 weeks ago, it was discussed about proximity to neighboring property owners and what the setback requirement might be for the crushing operation. We feel comfortable within the dust mitigation plan that we're presenting to you that a 100-foot distance from any neighboring property owner is very feasible for us to do, and is something that we can capture into the dust mitigation plan. And so we're fairly nimble on how we need to mitigate the dust here. We feel like we're presenting a very robust plan that's it's setting a new standard for Clyde companies, and we're proud of it. To speak to it tonight, if you want to get into the environmental components of the dust mitigation plan and the site, we do have a gentleman from our environmental team here this evening. We also have two gentlemen from Sunrock who can speak to the operation itself, as I will not try and pretend that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to that. So want to just talk about fugitive dust regulation. So as Dave articulated before I stood up, this site is going to be governed by the Division of Air Quality. There is a fugitive dust control application that has to be submitted with the DEQ. And there is a fugitive dust control plan that we are submitting as well. And last week when we sat down with Chris Childs and Steve, apologize, I forget your last name, and Mike, and they were expressing some concern about this. We feel strongly that dust is going to be a non-issue, but But the reason we feel that way is because there's protocols in place to keep us in check, and those protocols are governed by the Division of Air Quality. They're the ones who would arrive on site and issue a fine to us. Now, Clyde Companies is not used to that happening at all on our sites. But that is, you talk about, tightening the screws or adding, suspenders to the belt. The Division of Air Quality is the body to leverage for that. And again, we have an environmental specialist to speak more to that this evening, if you'd like to get into that. This just gives you an idea of what we're talking about regarding emissions. So we feel like the wrap product and the asphalt product that we've proposed on the site is drastically reducing any emissions that we're releasing. And it's very different from what you see currently on our site at Arrowhead. This is a much more consolidated site. It's not as spread out, and we're able to really confine the dust a lot easier than where we're at currently. So we feel like the emissions annually have been drastically reduced due to the site. This is just an example of what pounds annually would be emitted on just native ground versus the wrap product. Just to give you an idea of what PM10 emission a Ford truck, like my Ford truck, emits annually, about 20,000 pounds annually is what a truck like mine emits. The reason why we like to show this is because as we talk about the crusher specifically, it's significantly reduced in the amount of pounds annually that are emitted. This crusher image that you see is different from what Steve and Mike saw last week. And Mike didn't like the image, and understandably so. There was a different type of crusher that he's seen used irresponsibly, and it's our understanding that the user wasn't using water and a number of other protocols that we have to have in place here. So this is actually a crusher that is currently on our site, correct, Tyler? Currently on our site. It's a recycling operation. The recycling material is going to be primarily asphalt and cement that would run through a recycler like this. You have spray bars along the crusher to effectively eliminate fugitive dust from the conveyor belt, and we feel like the operation itself has really been buttoned up nicely from a fugitive dust standpoint. And we have a robust watering system that we'll be deploying on site, and water often on site, and that's one of the main, as Mike said last week, that's one of the main contributors to mitigating fugitive dust is through responsible water application, which we can demonstrate in our fugitive dust plan. So with that, I will end my presentation. We can take any questions if you have any.
We might have some questions for you after we have our public hearing.
Sure.
So if you're all right with that, we'll go into public hearing, and then once we come out of that, because they might bring up some questions that we can have you address along with some of the council members.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I would entertain to go into public hearing.
Motion to go into public hearing.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Scobes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are now in public hearing. Anyone that'd like to come up and address this issue, feel free to come up there. You got 3 minutes. We're going to be pretty strict with that so we can get through this meeting.
Okay, my name's Merlin Hickman. Many of you know me. I've been a long-time resident of Spanish Fork. We presently own the property just to the north. It's a 10-acre piece right next to their site that they're putting their building and stuff. One thing he did not bring up that they brought up in the planning meeting was he did bring up the setback. We're planning on using our property for what we're presently using it for, and that is a horse pasture, and continue to use it for that. We have a concern as they mentioned that there would be a berm put in between the properties. See, we're presently county, and that is zoned Spanish Fork. We understand the light industrial part of it. We understand the business they're bringing there. But they brought up the fact that there would be a berm and a fence, and that was not brought up. At the planning meeting, they said the fence would only come down to a partial point on the property. And we want to know why that can't go the entire distance of the property between us. We're looking for a mitigation of how our life and what we want to do on our property and what they want to do on theirs, how we coexist with this going on. Our plan is to continue to keep that in the family, use it for horses, and that's pretty much we want to continue to irrigate it. We don't want irrigation to be interrupted by any means. So our intent is to use the property for what we're using it for. We understand what they're intending to use it for, but there needs to be a decision on what we're doing on that border wall, or a fence, or the berm, or all of it, something to separate our properties. Because I don't think that one little horse fence down there is going to do it between a industrial and a farmland.
Right. Good enough. What we'll do is, after everybody gets done, we'll ask them those questions, and then we've written those down, and we'll have someone write those down and ask. Thank you. Looks like we're having technical difficulties with our timer, so guess what? I'll be the timer.
Just let it go for a minute, would you?
Yeah, and on
First,
you,
I
I'm
want
going
to
to really have to have a timer.
First, I want to say thank you for your service. I
State
understand
your name. We
your
all know you,
commitment.
but state your name.
Steve Wilson. I own Utah Aviation at the airport. I provide the fuel servicing for the aircraft there. I'm a little bit out of my league. I don't like to get up in front of people. I'm here for two reasons. Number one is to tell Sunrock that I believe in your concept. I really do. I dabble in what you do, and I think that what you bring to the table can't be matched by anybody around here. So I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to support you. As he indicated, we had a great meeting with Chris and me and Mike Patey and Chris Childs last week, and he was very open and candid with us about what's going on, and it gave us a sense of feeling that this is going to work. And perhaps the only thing that we have any concern about, obviously, is we have recently been approved for 3 new buildings and FBOs on that airport with a commitment in excess of $25 to $30 million, and to bring bigger aircraft in. And the aviation world, as big as it is, it's really a small world. And if we had a problem with dust, we would only get one opportunity to serve a jet that came in. I think their development will bring more to our airport. And I think if there's some more legs in what Dave had talked about, and I think from what I understand they're willing to do is have a little more legs if something does happen, even if they're in compliance with state and federal dust rules. But if we go over there and I take a rag on a $15 million jet that's sitting on our ramp, and I wipe it down and it's covered in dust, I will never see those people back. But I truly believe that Sunrock's the right one to make this happen, and that I think that as you work through it with them, that can be mitigated and we can be a great partner. I think it's going to bring commerce to our area that's been long needed for an industrial area. So that's my two.
You did good.
Did I make it?
Almost impressed.
Chris Child, manager of the Spanish Fork Airport. As you well know, we do have a lot of growth in our industry as well as at our airport. And as we've seen this application and looked over it, we are convinced that they can be a good neighbor to the airport. The concern just becomes whether all of the steps to mitigate the fugitive dust get followed. And I read their dust mitigation plan, at least what they have so far. It didn't include the application to the Division of Air Quality. My only reservation would be that if this is approved, and I haven't had a chance to read the staff report, I'm assuming that there's a staff report on this regarding proposals for ongoing dust monitoring and you know, if we did have a problem at the airport, how that might be dealt with. So I think as long as you know, as long as we know that the steps are being taken to keep the dust down, I think they could be a good neighbor. And anyway, I would hope that as we move forward with this, that we just make sure we are very thorough on whatever steps will be taken, not, you know, once they're in and operating, to make sure that that it doesn't become a problem. And again, just because of the value of the assets that these jets that we're trying to attract to the Spanish Fork Airport. We could either do that, or if they would include a shade hanger on the airport for Clyde's jet, just barely north of their, or barely south of their facility, that would also completely satisfy all of us. So anyway.
Way to put that plug in.
Yeah. We'd like to see that jet back too, by the way. We think that might help us. So anyway, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else likes to address this issue? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second. And a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Argal. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, would you like to come up and talk a little about his question about the berm and the fence?
Sure. And 2 weeks ago, I was rather embarrassed when Mr. Hickman stood up. We'd been trying to contact their family through other means and had been unsuccessful, and he was literally the only person I've not engaged with in this entire area or region, I'll refer to it as. So apologize again for that. So thank you for bringing this up. I know that we've originally, when we were on the other site, you recall, anything that wasn't going to be developed around us, we were going to, at the time, we were going to have a berm, right, to buffer the operation from whatever would happen in the future. And then at that point, when a development was happening or a plat would be approved, that would trigger some type of other, barrier between the two properties. What we have done on this site is we do have a 6-foot masonry wall that is going to be put in between our property and Mr. Hickman's property. So thank you for bringing this back up. Let's see. Am I in control?
You are.
So the site plan itself, well, maybe I'll just go back to the site plan. Tyler, correct me if I'm wrong. 6-foot masonry wall on, oh boy, this has changed. Between our property line and Mr. Hickman's line, correct? 6-foot masonry wall between our property and 800 West, correct? But it sits back because we have a nice landscape. Correct. It sits at the building, right here. Yeah, because we have a pretty nice landscape plan that we'll be implementing here along 800 West. What about south? 6-foot masonry wall here, and then we're going to be addressing what type of wall this user would like to have between our property and that will just be something that the two parties will agree upon. But yeah, since the Planning Commission meeting, we've needed to be sure that we're, helping the neighbors around us, and that's what we intend to do. And I still would really like to meet you on property in the next week to talk about that and a couple other things. So.
All right, any questions from the council?
Just real quick, so from the large truck traffic will be on that main road still? On, it's 8th West to me, or 1150 West City?
So yeah, the large truck traffic is going to be instructed to come down 3300 North, this is the new right-of-way, to 600 West, right? So that was a point of concern for Mr. Keith Williams and Alan Williams when we spoke last. They have property here where the cursor is. We fully anticipate the vehicular traffic mainly will be coming here to access the property, and a majority of our semi-truck traffic will come here. I mean, if there is a need for the truck to head west along SR 77, it's likely that they would come up 800 West to make their way down west SR 77. But the intent with that 90-foot right-of-way on the southern border is to facilitate semi-truck traffic.
And is there a berm then, or just the fence?
Wall, 6-foot masonry wall.
Okay, so no berm.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay. Correct? Yeah.
Any other questions? Great, thank you. I had one question for Chris. You've never had dust there from the wind that's blown from the north down to the airport, have we? Okay, I just want to make sure, because we have a lot of wind and we get a lot of dust, so I don't want everything being blamed on the neighbor across the street since they're there.
Oh, yeah, we do get, I know we do get dust from other directions.
Okay.
If that's your question.
Yep.
Yeah, especially from Delta.
Yeah, I mean, so Mr. Blunk and his wife, they're not here tonight, but they live in this home here. We've been working with them on a public utility easement for the sewer line, and we're hoping to, work out something with them soon, but for their property. But Carl's been here for 25 years. The prevailing winds are coming from east to west, and they all come this way. Sorry, my mouse is just screwing up. So they're all coming this way. And that's why the runway is actually oriented the way that it is because of those prevailing winds. And so, we feel like this is a great location for the land use.
Thank you.
And I'm not going to comment on your hangar request.
I'll talk to Wilford. So, all right. Any other questions or comments?
Just wanted to say, Mayor, I remember when my friends moved their car dealership from Main Street out to North Spanish Fork, Smith Auto, which is now Tim Daly, and I recall, I wasn't on the council at the time, but I remember my best friend who was a son of the Smiths, the Smith family, a lineman, and he's standing up saying, okay, we're here now, and Parsons wanted to build a batch plant right there where it is now. And I remember him concerned about keeping all of his vehicles clean. So I understand what you're saying with airplanes and that being a large asset for the city, our airport. But it's been a good partnership, and so I appreciate and want to make sure that we do iron out all of the dust mitigation situations and that we do protect that asset. Because I think it can be done, and I appreciate everybody getting in the same room to accomplish that. And I want to make sure that you guys are okay if you meet with, if you're able to meet and that wall is satisfactory, and everything as far as that goes. So just appreciate everybody getting in the same room and discussing and making sure this is a good project going forward, because we know once it's there, it's there. So thank you.
All right. With that, I would entertain a motion.
maybe before there is a motion, sorry. Jared, did you guys talk about your dust mitigation plan that you submitted to the state? It's got water, it has some agriculture, which I don't have, but kind of oil. Not so much on the crusher, but just on the ground itself, as well as the asphalt. Those are the three main components of the plan, right? Giving me that. The reason I want to highlight this is as you move forward, Mayor and Council, with your motion, some have asked for a little more clarity. Thank you, Jared. If the state standard isn't sufficient and there are concerns, what more could be done? Working with these guys to be able to say, hey, there's an issue, which of these can you deploy that quickly? I think that creates a good relationship between the airport. Sorry, I don't think my microphone, I think it's going in and out. Sorry.
And go ahead and state your name for the record.
My name's Cameron, excuse me. My name's Cameron Garfield. I work for Clyde Companies as an environmental specialist. I work in predominantly air quality compliance and permitting throughout all the companies. So I was the one that compiled this plan, and just to kind of touch on the submittal to the state, this is kind of in addition or goes beyond what the state would require for a dust mitigation plan. What our submittal to the state will look like once this, once this site were to be approved and we were to commence construction, is typically a summary, a very short summary of what we have prepared here. So this plan actually goes above and beyond what the state does require. One thing I did want to touch on is the state requirements regarding fugitive dust are, I think, a little more stringent than what people realize, because as we go down the roads and we're out and about, we see I've heard stories of, and I've seen them myself, I don't know what company it was, but somebody's, crushing recycled concrete or crushing recycled asphalt or something, and the visible fugitive emissions are pretty, shocking, and it's quite a surprise that they were still able to operate. The state standards are pretty stringent for visible emissions at the property line. It's a maximum of a 10% opacity, and that's a state code. So meaning at the property line, if anybody's familiar with opacity, 10% opacity is not very much. It's basically, you can see 90% of the background behind that plume at its darkest point. So it's a very stringent standard. Additionally, on the crushers, so a non-metallic mineral processing unit, so a crusher, a screening operation, is subject to more stringent federal standards. And so our our opacity limit on that crusher at the source, not at the property boundary, but at that source, 100 feet from the property boundary at a minimum, is 12% opacity, and that's over a 6-minute average. So not a very long average and not a very high opacity. So those are very stringently regulated emission units, and we also certify. We have to do certifications on these pieces of equipment, and we will certify them that they meet the federal opacity standards for fugitive emissions coming off those. We retain those records on file. And then to kind of, I guess, any questions on that on kind of the regulation side. So the point is, I think the regulations might be a little more stringent than some people realize, just because of what they may see in their day-to-day life. Additionally, agricultural operations are exempt from these regulations that we are subject to, so that might be another reason. And then just kind of outlining the plan. So yeah, you're right. There were we're really looking at 3 different areas that we're controlling dust from. So there's the open area, which would be covered in a road base with the storage piles. These piles they're going to be finished materials. One way that contrasts with the current Spanish Fork operation. The current Spanish Fork operation has a lot of, there's some reject material. I think there might be some gypsum material and stuff that we struggle with controlling dust. That's going to be a lot more challenging to control dust from. versus what we're going to have at the new site with you know, finished sand and gravel products and crushed concrete. The other part of this is that, yeah, the internal roads will be laid down with, we call it RAP, so it's recycled asphalt product. It's once you know, asphalt that has once been used, been paved, it's been tore up, we run it through the crusher. It's not even really crushing the rock itself, it's basically breaking up that bind. So crushing RAP is really, there's hardly any, I mean, we've never had an issue with crushing RAP and having dust. I mean, we still run water sprays on the crushers because it's a federal requirement, but I mean, it's, you know, we run them as needed because we just never see dust coming off when we're crushing RAP. Some of the other controls that are mentioned in this plan is street sweeping. So we are required by the state code to control if there's any track out of material onto a public highway, that we address that. So Sunrock does own and operate its own vacuum sweeper. We utilize it at our Salem pit, our Santaquin pit, and we maintain records of any time that street sweeper is deployed. And when we get inspected by Division of Air Quality, we have to provide those records. Is there anything I'm missing? I think I kind of. And then so the predominant dust control for the open areas and the stockpiles, Sunrock will operate a water truck on site. There will be a water stand on site, so we can deploy the water as efficiently as possible. The water truck will be able to bank spray any storage, if there are storage piles that tend to generate dust. We can water those, and they typically do a really good job of crusting over, getting a good crust. If we have to go in and pull material out and disturb that, we can put another layer down and water those as needed. The plan specifically doesn't call out frequency of watering. And that's something we talked about internally. The reason for that is it's going to vary greatly depending on time of year, right? We have a day like today where it's raining on and off, you know, high relative humidity. We may not need to water that yard 4 or 5 times a day, right? Whereas July comes and it's, 15% humidity, whatever, we're going to need to hit that yard, 4 or 5 times a day. And that's the beauty of having a water truck that we own that's operating in the area and water available in the area. We will be able to operate and maintain the wet surface there quite frequently. Any questions? That answers questions.
I just have one quick question. Utah DEQ requirements is 20% opacity on site, 10% on property boundaries.
Right.
You had mentioned 12%. Is that the standard that you hope to achieve throughout the site, or would there be areas where it up at that 20% level on site?
So you're correct in the 20%. That is for attainment areas. So anywhere in the Wasatch Front, so basically Weber to Utah County is what they consider a maintenance area for PM10. And so the fugitive emission maximum limit is ratcheted down to 15% on site. The 10% is at the property boundary. The 12% I mentioned is specific to the crushing. Okay. So once it's coming from a process, we're now subject to the 12% limit, and that's at the source, right? So by the time any of that gets even close to the boundary line, it's dissipated and not even noticeable at that point.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
So just to thank you, great job.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. As I looked at this a little bit, I actually agree a lot with what Mr. Wilson and Child said. I think these Sunrock has a great plan. I think they're very capable of doing this. I'm actually not too concerned about the crusher in terms of dust. I think the bigger, and maybe even dust overall. I think for me, the bigger issue is some of the sight lines, which we've already addressed in the overlay zone as well. However, you guys I think you've got a good sense of what concerns the airport has about dust. And I think if this is approved and they do go forward with the build, I think it would be really helpful for Chris as our airport manager, Steve as an FBO, and any others moving forward, that they have a couple of points of contact in the operation. So this is now well beyond where we are today, but in that operations, if there are issues, that they can get a hold of them quickly and attenuate those issues so that we are always a good operating partner. And I think having multiple points of contact there could do a lot to just simply calm a worry, because maybe that's all it is today, a worry. We'll know, obviously you know more later, right? But that might go a long ways to do that. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate the indulgence.
All right. Now with that, I'll go back to, I'd entertain a motion on this particular zone change.
I move we approve ordinance Z0321, changing the zoning designation and amending the official zoning map of Spanish Fork City for the Sunrock Industrial Zone change based on the findings and subject to the conditions provided in the staff report.
Okay, I got a motion by Councilman Scobes.
Second.
Second by Councilman Gordon. This will be a roll call vote. Councilman Scobes.
Aye.
Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Councilman Argyle.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. So, all right, let's go to the next one. Ordinance Z04-21, changing the zoning designation and amending the official zoning map of Spanish Fork for the Fieldstone zone change.
Mr. Mayor, the next two items are really identical. They're different properties. They're right next to one another. And I don't mean to take either of them lightly. They are zone changes, which is a pretty big deal. But in each case, the applicants are requesting a zoning district that's consistent with the general plan, and they're requesting to have their properties zoned in a manner that I think the Planning Commission feels very strongly about. You know that we've had a number of conversations in recent years about the need for maybe some properties in Spanish Fork to be a little bit bigger lots. And each of the next two proposals are in a part of the community that a few years ago was identified on the city's general plan for that very thing. In this case, we're not talking about, you say bigger lots. That's definitely a relative thing. In some communities, that would maybe mean a 1 acre lot or a 5 acre lot. In our case, the biggest lots historically that have been built, if you went back the last 20 years, it'd be 10, 11, 12,000 square feet. So now we're talking about a zoning district that would require lots to be at least 15,000 square feet. It's the R115 zone, the 15 being tied to that 15,000 square foot minimum lot size. You're aware that there's a mechanism that can be used to approve projects where there might be some lots that are a little bit smaller than that, but where the overall average lot size would be that 15,000 square foot minimum. And in as much this proposal and the next one both come to the City Council with recommendations to approve them from both the Development Review Committee and the Planning Commission. With respect to item number 8C on the agenda, this one, the Fieldstone zone change, I'll also mention that I appreciate the applicant working with the Planning Commission for a number of months to consider maybe some alternatives to this. I really, really appreciate the Planning Commission. I think they devoted a considerable amount of time looking at different scenarios, maybe for the zoning of this property. Some of those probably would have required the general plan to be amended as well. And at the end of the day, it was their recommendation to proceed forward this way, and I appreciate the applicant doing that. So again, largely because this proposal is consistent with the general plan, I think it is a big step towards helping to allow for maybe more of a balance in terms of the overall size of lots that exist in Spanish Fork's lot inventory, if you will. That it's a great step, and like I said, the Development Review Committee and the Planning Commission have both recommended that it be approved.
Thanks. This is a public hearing, so I'd entertain a motion to go in the public hearing.
So moved.
Second. Got a motion by Councilman Argyle, a second by Councilman Gordon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone that'd like to come and talk about this zone change, you're welcome to step to the podium. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Beck. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any questions or comments from the? Sure. Didn't know you were here. Sorry. Come on up. Speak up. We're not in the library. Sure, we'll let the applicant. We always let the applicant speak.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. My name's Randy Smith. I'm with Fieldstone Homes, and we appreciate that working with city staff and with the Planning Commission. We did come with this property looking at 10,000 and 12,000 square foot lots, and the application currently is for the R115. In looking, and the property to the south is coming for that same zoning. So, and in this area, they talked about, wanting these 15,000 square foot lots around, and we can work with that. A couple weeks ago in the Planning Commission meeting, just behind the rezone, they also had approved the preliminary plat for the Quiet Valley piece, which is to the south of us, including the piece that's directly adjacent to us. And that preliminary plat has the lots that are directly adjacent to our property in the range of 7,000 to 8,000 square foot lots. So about half the size of what we're looking at with the R115. And if the council feels like R115 is what's right for here, for this location, we'll work with that and we can make that work. We would welcome the opportunity to do an R110 and R112 to better blend from the higher density. The Quiet Valley comes from an R3 and is working its way up. We would welcome that opportunity, but we're just excited about the chance to have another project in Spanish Fork, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the council has about the project. But as I say, if the council would be willing to look at blending that density up into the R115 as it moves north through this part of the city, we would be excited about the prospect.
Any questions? Dave, you got any response to that, or?
I think you're maybe speaking more towards an item that's on the agenda a little bit later. Is that correct?
I don't know if the preliminary plat for Quiet Valley is on the agenda.
Yeah,
it is.
But that's not a public hearing, so.
Yeah, it's the adjacent property, right? That's.
So you're
I'm talking about
not necessarily wanting R115, so you're talking about something else.
If R115 is what's right for the city, then we will go for that. But I'm saying if the council thinks it's appropriate and feels it's appropriate to blend up from the tighter zoning to the south of us, working up to an R115 and basically allowing us to go R110 or maybe R112, we would appreciate it. It would help us spread the cost of offsite utilities. It would help in attainability in home prices.
I'll let Dave.
Yeah. We had simply understood that in accordance with the request that Matt Loveland provided, is he with Fieldstone Homes?
He was. He
was.
He's taken another job.
Well, assuming that he had the authority to request the R115 zone, we have some correspondence to that effect that's included with the staff report that that's what the applicant wanted to have. So that's what we've based our recommendation on as staff. That's what the Planning Commission understood. And that's what we're presenting tonight. If the applicant would like us to maybe, if you're saying you'd like to change that request and.
I guess I don't wish to start the application process entirely over. We've already come to staff and talked, I think, R110 and come all the way to Planning Commission. Yeah.
Prior to receiving the February 10 letter that we have.
Yeah. So. No, it's not our intention to start over the application. It's my understanding that the council, as the deciding body, could grant whatever zoning you guys felt was appropriate for the property, kind of regardless of our application.
Well, I think we'd have to go back through the process if we're going to change. If you're requesting a different zone change, then we'd have to go back through. We're not just going to,
and
we can't just say, yeah, go ahead. You know, we'd have to go get the recommendation from DRC, planning and zoning, if you're going to change your application
And I fully expect if we go back through that the planning commission would give us a negative recommendation.
We'll do whatever you want. If you want to try it, or we can make this, we can go proceed what we've got here now.
Let's proceed with what we've got.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
It's your choice. You can do whatever you want.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the?
I just have a quick question. And it's probably more for Dave, with the Quiet Valley zone change or preliminary plat, is that going to be R12 butted up right next to R15?
The request is for R115 zoning as well.
In that area? Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
and that part of the property, which currently is just zone rural residential, which abuts property that's zoned R3, would simply be part of one comprehensive master plan development. And inasmuch as that's the case, there is a certain number of homes that our ordinance allows for them to include in a project, and we'll get into some of the details of that in a minute. And they indeed can have lots that are smaller than 15,000 square feet.
Right.
They can have townhomes, as you'll see, and a lot of different things. They simply can't exceed a certain number of homes, and they're much farther below the number of homes that they could have than any application that I've seen in 15 years here in Spanish Fork. So, but again, we'll get into that
Can we borrow
later.
a few of those?
Okay, any other questions?
I just need to disclose that Fieldstone is a client of mine at my work.
Perfect.
I move to approve ordinance Z04-21, changing the zoning designation and amending the official zoning map of Spanish Fork City for the Fieldstone zone change based on the finding provided in the staff report.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Argal. Again, this will be a roll call vote. Councilman Argal.
Aye.
Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Scopes.
Aye.
That pass. All right. Next one, ordinance Z05-21, changing the zoning designation and amending the official zoning map of Spanish Fork City for the Quiet Valley zone change.
And as I mentioned earlier, I kind of lumped just the fundamentals of this request together with the previous one. It's identical in terms of the subject property currently being zone rural residential. They'd like the zoning changed to R115. Planning Commission's recommended that it be approved that way. That's consistent with the general plan. Also, like I said, I mean, I don't want to sound like we're taking this lightly, but this is really what our general plan calls for, and this is exactly what we'd expect and would want to see.
Okay. This is also a public hearing, so I would entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Argal, a second by Councilman Gordon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're in public hearing. Anyone would like to come and talk about this zone change? 3 minutes. All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Scopes, a second by Councilman Gordon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any questions or comments on this zone change? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance Z05-21, changing the zoning designation and amending the official zoning map of Spanish Fork City for the Quiet Valley zone change based on the finding provided in the staff report.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Beck, second by Councilman Scopes. This also will be a roll call vote. Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Scopes.
Aye.
Councilman Argal.
Aye.
That passes. All right, let's move down to Resolution 21-05, amending the Spanish Fork City Water Conservation Plan. We like our water. There's our guy.
Well, it's been a really dry winter up until the last several weeks. So we're really glad to see some precipitation coming up in the mountains. We prefer rain in the valleys and snow in the mountains. It's easier to plow the rain, we've noticed in Public Works. We are required by the state to update our water conservation master plan every 5 years. And so this is the 5-year update. A lot of cities, and in fact us in the past, would hire consultants to crunch the numbers and could you bring up the memo for this? Crunch the numbers and create this master plan and turn it into the state. But our good water department here, and we have John Waters and Paul Taylor here from the water division, took on updating this this water conservation plan themselves, and did an outstanding job. Very impressive. As I read through it, I don't know if this. The memo. So, can I point out something? Well, just kind of scroll down to that graph, and that will show you the first graph. So over the last several years, we have constantly been decreasing our water use per capita ahead of the governor's challenge to the cities. We attribute a lot of this to the fact that we were the first and really the only for quite some time city to meter their pressurized irrigation. And so once you meter the amount of water that is used, then people are more responsible and incentivized to be conservative in their use. Now it's becoming a mandate by the state that all cities meter their water, and the cost of this is in the tens of millions of dollars for a city our size. And going back to when we installed this system citywide, I remember going over the cost to add meters to the project, and it was $1 million. So that certainly is saving us a lot of money in that we were able to do it, and construction costs were quite a bit lower. That being said, we have goals to continue water conservation, and there's a number of methods that we have in our plan to accomplish these goals. We received these several grants to give free smart sprinkler controllers to residents, and each year we do about 500 of these. We install them professionally and we set them up. We take soil sample types and then we program each station in someone's sprinkler system according to the soil sample, the slope of the ground, the type of plant that is being watered, and then the smart meters monitor the weather, and they automatically create a good conservative way to water the lawns and keep them green. And so that's one part of the plan. Another part of the plan is the city is working again with a grant to replace all of the meters that are not at this level yet, but replace the ones that can meter your water to the nearest gallon. The old meters would meter to the nearest 1,000 gallons. But when we're done with this project, all the meters will be able to meter to the nearest gallon. And with that information, there is a free app or website that residents can go to, and they can log on and see their water use real time to the gallon, and they can receive alerts if their water use spikes up, perhaps a leak in their sprinkler system or inside the house. There's a vacation mode, so if you're on vacation, all of a sudden your water use spikes up, you can call a neighbor and have them go check on the house and hopefully prevent some damage. But also you can kind of monitor your usage, and there's little alerts if your water usage is really high for the month. You can maybe sit down with the family and talk about how long your showers are or going, or whatever you want to do. Anyway, we're excited about that app, and there's a number of things. If you could scroll down to the next graph. This is a particular area of focus that the Water Division has had, and it's on what is called unaccounted for water. Nationwide, it's considered that you have a pretty good system if about 25% of the water you put into a water system is unaccounted for. So you put in 100 million gallons into the water system, you only end up metering 75 million gallons. And that other 25 million gallons is unaccounted for. We don't know where it goes. Now, there's lots of places where it can go. A lot of times it's in a leak in the water system. We found a leak once next to the river, and we're really grateful that we found that, because you know, how would you ever know the water was just going to the river? At any rate, we've really focused on that with leak detection and other ways of tracking down unaccounted for water, and you can see over time that the Water Division has done a great job in accounting for as much water as possible, and has gotten it down to about 10.7%, which is really great. Anyway, there's a number of items in the water conservation plan, but those are some of the highlights, and we just ask that that we have a public hearing. The state requires that it be there be public input on this water plan, so we plan on 10 or 12 of you to come up and talk about it, and then after that, if you can adopt it, that would be great.
Way to go, Chris. Appreciate you. All right, I'd entertain a motion to go into a public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Argyle, a second by Councilman Gordon. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone of those 10 or 12 people who'd like to come up and talk, you're welcome to. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved. Second.
A motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Argyle. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any questions or comments?
I have a tongue-in-cheek comment. It's too bad all of those elected officials were voted out that year, that was approved, because that has saved our city millions upon millions of dollars, correct, Chris? And you are leading that, and thank you for your time and energy and their foresight to move forward with that.
So Richard Heap was the public works director at that time, and really the credit should go to him. He was my boss and just really had a lot of foresight there. The elected officials really went out on a limb and made the right decision, and they were all elected out of office over the next couple of years because the water rates did go up. It's interesting right now, our water rates are some of the lowest in the county, and definitely if you include Salt Lake, and our water division is doing really well financially, and there are no projected rate increases over the next 10 years, and we haven't had a rate increase in our water since 2003. In fact, we've had 5 rate decreases since then, while all the other cities' rates have gone up quite a bit, and that's without any water restrictions ever. So this was a great project.
Mayor, just in that same vein, again, appreciation to city staff, past and present. I work with a couple of city council members from other neighboring communities, and this is something, the pressurized irrigation, that they're fighting. Well, fighting's probably not the right word, but they are working through right now, and they expect spending millions, far more than the $1 million that was spent when Spanish Fork City did it. And so, again, just appreciate past and present, as has mentioned, and the fine work that your groups do to find those leaks and to mitigate the losses. It really does save us a lot of money as a city.
All right, with that, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to to approve Resolution 21-05, amending the Spanish Fork City Water Conservation Plan.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Argal, a second by Councilman Gordon. This also will be a roll call vote. Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Scobes.
Aye.
Councilman Argal.
Aye.
Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to new business. Quiet Valley preliminary plat.
Thanks, Paul. John?
See, the clock's only 7 o'clock. You look at your watch, it's only 7.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just kind of realizing that the applicants have prepared a presentation that I'm not sure we have entirely queued up here tonight, so I might need a minute to help Nick get that ready to go. But to touch on just the big picture things, and I'm going to keep it fairly simple and high level. We briefed the council on this just a couple of weeks ago. But for anybody else that's here that might be interested, we talked earlier tonight about part of what is included in Quiet Valley with the zone change that you approved for the property that's on the northern part of what we see here, that change to R115. Incidentally, the property that we're looking at here, the V, if you will, is created by the junction of the two different rail lines and the two different state highways, State Road 89 here, I actually think it's US 89, and US Highway 6 here. The history of this property involves like gravel mining and that sort of a thing. At least the majority of it, the northernmost part of the property, I think, has just been cultivated over the years. The property has the two different zoning designations now, R115 and R3. And in as much as that's the case, the master plan development ordinance that this has been reviewed under would allow for some 550 homes. And the plat that we'll look at in just a minute includes something just below 480. With that being the case, certainly the council can approve it. With it being a proposal for a master plan development, you have considerable oversight and you're not obligated to approve it that way. But certainly what we're seeing tonight, I would say, is consistent with concepts that we've been looking at now for nearly a year. And those have continued to be refined. They continue to be refined in different ways, and I think staff really appreciates the applicant's willingness to continue to make adjustments and to work through some of the details that aren't uncommon at all, certainly not for a project of this size, given a lot of very unique things that come into play with the configuration of the property, and how heavily it's encumbered with different easements and utilities and lots of different things that make it a challenge, I think, to design ultimately what is before you tonight. But that being the case, to take a look at just the bare bones of it right here. So with this image here, it's rotated 90 degrees counterclockwise. So north with this image here is over here. So again, US Highway 6, US 89, and the rail lines. You can see the area of the property, which topographically is significantly higher than much of the rest of the property. And if you will, a very fair amount of this area right in here. Without knowing the very explicit details of it, I think it's been mined out over the years. So it is a depression, and it's also not necessarily uniform at all in terms of the lay of the land there. The area up above is much more uniform, I think much more suitable for the housing type that is designed for that, single-family homes, ranging in size of anywhere from 6,000 up to over 8,000 square feet there. But primarily, the property is proposed to be developed with townhomes. And maybe I'll let the applicant touch on some more of the details related to that. And really, I think one of the keys to be aware of relative to this specific proposal is that this property and others in the area are vacant today, and I think would continue to be vacant well into the future, but for this. This is the project that will drive land use change in the area, because it is what will really cause infrastructure to get extended from, I would say, Maple Mountain High School, or, you know, properties that are in very close proximity to that. If you can kind of picture the distance that we're talking about needing to cover with a sewer line and some different things like that in order to make properties throughout that part of the bench developable, it's a very significant undertaking. In as much as, for example, like we saw earlier tonight, proposals being made to develop consistently with the general plan in the area, I think that is really the proper implementation of the general plan, you know, really to help facilitate development in an area that's in the city's growth boundary, where I think a lot of signals have been given that this is the time to develop that part of the community. And I think it's really exciting to see. But I get really excited about things like this. So again, I'll turn things over to the applicant in just a minute, and I think I might have to scramble to help pull up a presentation here. But do you have any questions about the project that I can answer before? Okay.
Don't.
Thanks. I will mention maybe just one other thing, that this does come tonight to the City Council with a recommendation to approve it from the DRC and the Planning Commission. Like I mentioned, there is still maybe a little bit of evolution going on and just some details. I think, honestly, it's the equivalent of crossing T's and dotting I's, but there are things that still need to be clearly defined. I think before it's appropriate to turn a developer loose on a project of this scale. So we've been talking consistently with the developer from the beginning about creating a development agreement of some sort, like a master development agreement that would touch on all different types of issues, from a phasing plan to the very detailed aspects maybe of how homes would look and utility delivery and those sorts of things. We do anticipate creating such an agreement and bringing that back to the council for approval at a future date. That being said, as I understand it, the action that we're asking you to take tonight to approve this plat really is a very significant step that potentially would allow the applicant to proceed forward with some additional engineering work and things like that that become really important. And it's hard to maybe imagine, and I may be off base in what I'm going to say, but I think getting the project to the point to where, you know, for example, maybe you have roads constructed and that type of thing during this construction season, there is a timing component that we think about even this early, you know, in March, to make that happen, you know, by October. So that's really all that I had. And I'll try to find your presentation really quick. I assume you have it. Perfect. Thank you. So we'll get that queued up, and we'll turn the time over to D.R. Horton.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. Adam Loser from D.R. Horton. I'm the Vice President of Land Acquisition for the Utah Division. I live in North Utah County with my wife, 7 kids, and 26 chickens. And I love that I can sit here and see a horse in a stable. This is the first City Council that I've been able to do that at. I love that.
Hey, we always said we're a city of first.
Yeah.
Here.
Well, it's been a delight to work with staff, and I presented to some of you last year when we presented our answer to your RFP to sell this project, and frankly, it's been pretty amazing to work with staff and help create the vision of what we hope to achieve here. So just a little bit about D.R. Horton. White button. Okay. We're the largest builder in North America. Last year we did about 55,000 homes. We operate kind of as a franchise, if you will. Our market here, there's about 140 or so employees. Nearly all of us are from Utah. Our division president, Boyd Martin's a Provo, born and raised, and he's been the president for 20 years. And so we've got a lot of people that have a lot of heart here locally. We're in 29 different states, 88 markets, and we have homes for every stage of life. We kind of think that we're like the car dealership, right? You go and you want to go to get a Toyota Camry, that's great. That's our D.R. Horton line, right? If you want a Corolla, then we've got an Express home for you. If you want an Avalon, we've got an Active Adult for you, right? And our Freedom line. And then we have a high-end Emerald, which is kind of like the Lexus line. So we do everything in that range as far as delivering product to our market. Oh, we're going to skip that. So this is our Legacy Farms project, a large master plan community on 182 acres. We bought a pivot from the LDS Church, and within a couple of years we stood up nearly 900 homes. We've got some fun farming theming over there. This is our cottage product, similar to what you'll see proposed on some of the project. That's a 3,000 square foot home, 4-bed, 3-bath, unfinished basement, 2-car garage on a 45-foot wide by 85-foot deep lot. So small lot, but still a pretty good-sized home for a family. And it's funny, the types of families that we have move into these, empty nesters, people that want to downsize, new families, right? And so you get this broad diversity of mix as far as product goes. And that's what we think makes a master plan community. And some of those themes are what we're trying to introduce here into Quiet Valley. This is a successful project we did in Highland, the northeast corner of the county. 80 acres, 230 homes. That home, retrades for around $2 million now. So it just shows that we can do all of these. Everything that I'm showing you is stuff that we've built, designed in-house, and delivered to the market. We've done stuff up in Mercer Hollow on the top of Suncrest and Draper, some different townhomes there. Another beautiful home, Tall Woods. If you went outside and looked at the top of Suncrest, you would see this home. And if you stood in the top of that home, you could see all the way to the Great Salt Lake. It sees both counties all the way. It's on the very top. Some more of our townhome product here that we built in Bluffdale and South Jordan, Saratoga Springs. You see some 3-story townhomes. We're not proposing any of that in Quiet Valley. But the top right, our North Shore product, that's a fun townhome product there, kind of a craftsman feel. And then this development that you see here in the middle is more reflective of the size of a pool that we would put in Quiet Valley. Along with, we've got a clubhouse there, but you can see we've got some 3-story townhomes on the left and some 2-story townhomes back behind the sand volleyball there. This is just off the I-15 exit by Utah Valley University. So you know the location as it relates. This is our colored concept plan. We've made a few changes to this, as Dave alluded to, but generally you can see we've got some different product types there. The lighter units we've pushed up against the north side there on your left. Those are some of our bigger single-family homes, 8,000 square foot lots, and then you'll see we get some strips of yellow. Those are our cottage lots. Those narrowed down a little bit to the 5,000 square foot lots. But that helps to break up the streetscape. You've got a wider lot that maybe you stick a Rambler on, and then you go to a cottage which is a 2-story. We also do our setbacks. We move our homes back and forth. So as you're looking down the sidewalk on a streetscape, you have some undulation, which helps present a nice view from the street. So we've blended that in, and then we've got two different townhome types. We've got some front-load townhomes, which are your darker brown, and then the lighter townhomes are the alley-load townhomes that load from the rear. And then those gray ones, it's another front-load version, but just a little bit different floor plan. So we're trying to hit some different product price points and also some different absorption. Now this was a really challenging site, Mayor, that you presented to the market.
Hey, we don't want to do anything easy.
And I love, can I credit somebody with the development name of Quiet Valley? Because we've got a railroad on 2 sides. We're going to have to put a sewer lift station in the middle of the site because it is down in a valley.
It's all in the name. It's all in the name. Doesn't matter where it's at.
We've got 3 power line corridor easements and a giant water line easement right through the middle of this project. So I think the only thing we're missing is a oh wait, that's across the street. The substation's across the street for the power. Sewer treatment plant, that's probably the only box we didn't check. But we still think this is a fantastic location for this type of product and that it will be well received by the market. And we're confident in our ability to come in and develop and deliver on all of these. Recently, in the past few weeks, negotiating how we get some of the offsite utilities here that Dave mentioned too. The city was originally going to take the lead on that, and just with the challenges and pricing that we're seeing in the market, Michael thought, hey, this might be better if you stepped in as the lead developer and assumed the city's role. All the easements and the locations and the design's all done, but you're probably going to get better pricing and you'll be able to deliver faster than if this was a city bid project. And so while we don't necessarily love being the bank, we agreed that it would be good for us to probably bring that in at a lower budget and also control our timing, because we have to get this delivered in order to the offsite utilities delivered to the site so we can hit our closing time frame. So we've assumed that role, and that East Bench utility agreement is being reworked a little bit to accommodate that request. We've got a couple of little triangles that we need to buy from Rocky Mountain Power. I'm not sure. Is my little cursor thing going to work if I hold down the top button?
Yeah, it showed up on my screen, so point to the right. Keep going right. Go right.
Okay. So there's a little triangle here that Rocky Mountain still owns as part of this larger open space corridor. They think that since that's inside the city, that it would be best for the city to contract for that close and then pass it through to us when we close with the city. The other one is this triangle here, and they're going to bring that to market with a sign, and they have some guidelines that they need to bring that out, but we'll go ahead and bid on it. We think we're the logical choice because anybody else is going to put 2 lots on a major road with 100 feet of frontage that they have to widen and improve. So the uniqueness of our site plan would lend to that. But barring those 2 issues, we've really made some good changes, even to this plan. Let me show you a little bit of the amenities. So this is a pool and a restroom facility we built over in Mapleton Grove, just off of Slant Road. It lives great, it works great. The homeowners there's 200 homes, and it's about $40 a month in HOA dues for this amenity, which is a fantastic draw and been a big hit with the community. So this is the similar type of pool and restroom facility we would put in Quiet Valley. Some trails. Boy, that's a good-looking family there on the bottom left.
Wow.
But that's the number one feature that we have in our master plan communities across the nation. Everybody asks for trails. They want to see trails, connectivity. And so we're building that in everything that we do. So this is a pump track there on the left. That's kind of what a concept looks like. That one on the right is one we've actually built out in West Lehigh. We bought 300 acres from the Allred family on their ranch there and built that. And it's been so well received that the city has come to us and said, can you move this over to the city park? Because it's in a private HOA park right now, and we get people from all over driving to come and ride on the pump track. And it's really cool, except for when the guys show up on their 50s after high school gets out and try and ride a motorized vehicle on it. I say, no, I can't do that. But been very well received, and that's one of those outstanding features that we anticipate putting in the heart of this community. Some fun theming that will continue here. We've got some tractors that we refurb and paint and anchor to the ground. Kids love to play on those, and they make fun family photo opportunities. We'll have a couple of those smaller playground areas in the development as well. And then some pavilions. These silos about a year ago still had grain in them, but we bought them as part of the acquisition on this family farm in Lehigh and turned them into these cool pavilions around the pool area. So we love to carry that same theming here at Quiet Valley. And then those cattails there, that's just some rebar that we had our steel guy fabricate up. We put it in a planter bed and surrounded it with flowers. And anyway, some fun theming that will continue on here in our amenities. You can see the benches that we have along the linear park are actually tractor seats. And then the water tower. We probably won't do something like that because of all of the fun power lines overhead. We'll have a shorter entry monument, but you can see what we're proposing there. So some more townhome. Here you've got some different elevations and color packages. Some concerns are, hey, if you've got so many townhomes next to each other, how do you vary those? And so we've got 3 different elevations. We've got a farmhouse elevation, a craftsman elevation, and a traditional elevation that has kind of the rock wainscot. And then we've got a myriad of different color options that we can install as well. So the top one is our craftsman. The bottom one is the craftsman as well. That's more of our farmhouse elevation. You get a little bit steeper roof pitch and some more of the vertical lap siding. That's an alley-loaded product. And that's the site plan. So walking through the amenities, you can see, let's see, aim right. So you can see down here we've got a tot lot feature here. We've got another tot lot feature here in the middle of this park. And then this is kind of a no man's land. You've got a power line corridor here and a power line corridor here. And so we decided to put a couple of pickleball courts here. And then your pump track, your pool, restrooms, and then parking here. And then this up here is just another little townhome triplex. And then you can see the proposed trail connections, how it works through the community. A couple of changes that we've made since that color rendering here are we added a bunch of parking stalls at the end of these dead-end rows. These alley parking spaces here. We added some more parking down here and here. And let's see. Oh, wait, this is actually the other PowerPoint. Can you switch over to the PDF by chance? I just highlighted that tabulation. And I wanted to share that with you. We're parking way more than what's required by the code, because in our experience, everybody needs more parking. I'm just thankful that I get credit for the actual driveway and the garage, because in Santaquin, I can build a 20-foot deep garage and a 20-foot deep driveway for 4 cars, and I get credit for 1. So thank you, Mayor, for having a great code. Yeah, that's the one. And it's a little hard to see, but on those tabulations, as Dave mentioned, and I'm happy if the council wants to grant us some of these TDRs, we'll use them somewhere else in your city, but we're way under on the approvable density, and then the stalls that we provided there. I think we've got 110 guest parking stalls on top. So that's Quiet Valley. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, timing or product or connection.
Any questions?
Do you remind us or the viewers the timing? Like, when are you expecting to start?
So we would love to close on this in June, and then immediately start into development so that we can get paved at least on our first phase by the end of this calendar year. And then we'll start building homes right on the tail end of that, and then we'll move into the next phases development-wise immediately, and those will all pave, next April and May. And we anticipate being in here, if the market continues as is, 3 to 4 years by the time we're built out. But the real key to that for our neighbors around us is that East Bench utility agreement pulls all of those improvements to their front doors and helps open the rest of that up for development.
Great. Hey, we're excited. Get her done. Would you? Quit
Yes, sir.
messing around.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. We'll let you come down and look at the horses all the time you want.
Great.
Good enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I move to approve the Quiet Valley preliminary plat based on the findings and subject to the conditions provided in the staff report.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Scobes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Good job. Canyon Creek Intermountain Healthcare Project signage.
You might remember that about a month ago, Woodbury presented a proposal to modify some things about the project signage plan for the Canyon Creek development. And this is just part of that. IHC is a co-developer of Canyon Creek. They want signs that are bigger than what our code allows for. This is kind of a marquee that would be located at the corner of Canyon Creek Parkway and Marketplace Drive. And in as much as that's the case, they've made an adjustment. It's a fairly slight one, but it's one that we're happy as staff to see. I believe the folks at Woodbury are happy to see it as well, so that there's some connection at least to this sign and some of the things that Woodbury's been doing with all of their signs in the project. If you can see the rock base that they have identified on this sign, that'll match what Woodbury has with their signs. And let me clearly admit that we're probably a year or so behind having this conversation with IHC. Had we started the conversation a year ago, I think there might have been a chance to have had maybe a little bit more significant adaptation of a sign like this, which is a very important part of their brand. They've been very explicit about that, and I believe it. So in as much as that's the case, I don't think there's a lot of opportunity probably to make modifications to maybe make it look more like some of the other signs in Canyon Creek. And in as much as it's a hospital facility, something that's fairly unique, and I think you do want to have clearly identifiable signage and all of that type of a thing. Like I said, I'm really happy with the modification that they've made to add the rock base. And with that being part of this, which would be incorporated into the overall project signage plan for the Canyon Creek development, the Planning Commission has recommended that it be approved.
Good. Any questions or comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the Canyon Creek Intermountain Healthcare Project signage plan amendment.
Second.
I got a motion by Councilmember Beck, a second by Councilman Scobes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Spanish Fork Nursing and Rehab.
The proposal here involves constructing an 8-foot tall masonry wall on parts of the property line. That was totally not intentional. Parts of the property line. Incidentally, does everybody know where the Spanish Fork Nursing and Rehab facility's at?
First East.
Exactly, center and First East. And it's essentially being replaced. The original facility, let's just say, was something that's entirely new. That'll happen incrementally with the new facility being constructed in order to allow for the existing to be abandoned and raised. But the council, I know, is aware that for anyone to construct a fence or a wall in Spanish Fork that's taller than 6 feet, it requires your approval. In this case, the applicant would like to construct such a wall along the majority of the north property line between the facility and a single-family home and some other property that's a little bit east of that on the north, and along the majority of the east property line as well. And particularly given the unique nature of the facility and understanding that there is a need for maybe increased security and privacy and that type of a thing, I think there's certainly merit to the request. I did ask the contractor that's managing the project for the applicant if they'd reached out to the neighbors, and they said that they'd at least tried to have some contact there but hadn't necessarily been successful. So to be honest, I'm not sure if any neighbors have a concern with this, but certainly I think it would lend itself to more privacy for each party on each side of it, and I'd certainly suggest that you consider approving it.
Any questions, comments?
I move to approve the proposed request to construct an 8-foot tall fence for Spanish Fork Nursing and Rehab.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Argal. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Go ahead and tell me what that is. Sales agreement. How's that?
That's perfect. So
Okay.
we actually have two separate sales agreements, Mayor and Council, and I'm Scott Aylett. I'm the Director of the Spanish Fork Library. You've been briefed on both of these in a previous work session, but we thought it would be fun to bring this up tonight and let the public kind of see what we're looking to do at the library. And a lot of this comes from our studies in preparation for the new building, just looking for ways to increase efficiencies within the library and provide for a more user-friendly experience for our patrons. So the first is the sales agreement with the Biblioteca. We process every single day about 1,000 items coming into the library and another 1,000 items that leave the library, which takes quite a bit of our staff time to do this. And so we've been trying to identify a way that we can more efficiently process these items. And as we toured other libraries and looked at some different technologies that have been implemented, one that we found is a sorter that takes a lot of the load off of our staff to handle those items that come in. As we retrieve the book bins, we inspect the items for any damage, clean as necessary. We check them into the system, we set aside all the holds, and then we get them ready to shelf. This takes us, we do it 4 times a day, 2 staff members doing it simultaneously, sometimes more depending on the size of the book drop. So we spend about 6 hours a day, 36 hours a week doing this, and there certainly is a better use of staff time. So as we looked at some other libraries, the sorter solution was one that we were really excited about and heard great things from other libraries. So here's just a quick video of how the sorter works. So patrons in the new library would be able to place their incoming materials on this conveyor belt system that makes it so they're not stacked. So as they go up the conveyor belt, they all get off of one another, and as they run up the conveyor belt system, they get checked into the system wirelessly and then get sorted into one of 5 predetermined bins based off of which collection it goes to. So is it the children's collection, teen, adults, and it will even set aside all incoming holds. So if there's a holds request, it puts it in its own bin so that our staff can get it processed and ready for the next patron to come get more quickly. As an extension of this technology, we would also propose to implement these self-checkout stations in the new library. These use that same radio frequency identification or RFID system. And patrons, much like they can do at the grocery store, can use these systems and kiosks to check their materials out. And one really cool thing with the RFID system is you can stack a set of books on top of one another, and it can read through all of the books and check them out without having to manually scan the barcode on the back of each book. Now, as we've spoken with other libraries, they say that between about 70 and 90% of their patrons use these self-checkouts once they're implemented in the library. And this will be especially helpful for us in the new building where we don't have a traditional circulation desk up on the 2nd floor. So we want to really enable our patrons to be able to use these self-service technologies in our new building. Now, certainly this isn't an easy fix, right? There's a lot that goes into it, and so this summer we would propose beginning the process of converting all our 70,000 item collection to this RFID system so that once we open the new building next fall, we can hit the ground running and use both the sorter as well as those self-checkout systems. So for the sales agreement with Biblioteca, we sent it out to RFP, received numerous bids from different suppliers, and we're very confident and impressed with Biblioteca's proposal based on their qualifications as well as their pricing. The vast majority of the cost, especially year 1 cost for the Biblioteca sales agreement, will be covered and paid through the bond that was passed by you, Mayor and Council, for the new library building. There are annual ongoing costs that we will incur for the annual maintenance and service of the system, as well as initial purchasing of the RFID tags and conversion tools. So if you have any questions, happy to answer those, but we certainly would recommend to you, Mayor and Council, approving this sales agreement with Biblioteca for the AMH sorter and RFID system.
Any questions or comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion. Don't be afraid of the name.
I'll approve the Biblioteca sales agreement.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion by Councilman Argyle, a second by Councilman Gordon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Aspen Discovery Cell Agreement.
This one's a little bit more easy to pronounce. So again, as we've gone through this process preparing for the new library, another question that we have asked ourselves is how do we make the library more user-friendly for our patrons? And Nick, if you'll click on that first icon, that's the Spanish Fork Library. So our patrons use what is our catalog. So it's our online tool that they can search for items in our collection. And our catalog isn't the best at returning what patrons are looking for. Oftentimes we hear from patrons, I search for this, but I can't find it. Where do I find it? And so, for example, a popular title obviously is Harry Potter. And if I search in our catalog, the first 5 or 6 results are Spanish titles, which certainly we do have patrons that use our Spanish collection, but it may not be the most popular collection that we have. And so just the base capability of our catalog is not the greatest at getting patrons what it is that they're looking for. So our library information system has a plugin that you can add on to your catalog that improves the relevancy of the search results, as well as adds on some additional features. So if you'll go back to the presentation, Nick, and click on the Uinta County. Oh, you're totally fine. Right, so it's kind of a long list. Uinta County, Duchesne County, as well as Wasatch County all subscribe to this service through the system provider that we use. You search for Harry Potter, and not only is book number 1 the first one that you get back, but it also pulls in all of the different mediums for that title. So you see the physical book, you see the e-book, you see the e-audio book, you see the audio book, you see the Kindle edition, all in one place, making it that much more easy for our patrons to get what it is that they're looking for. There are some other capabilities where it'll give you recommended reads based off of that genre or that title, and other ways that we can integrate this with, for example, the historical database, photo database at the University of Utah, where you could type in some search terms and it'll pull up historical photos related to the search terms that you entered. Right now we're starting a process of having all of the old high school yearbooks that we have scanned and digitized, and having this system would make it that much easier for our patrons to then find those search results based off of yearbook terms that you would put in. Another good example, Uinta County, if you type in, say, Spanish language in their search, it gives you an ad for a subscription that they subscribe to as a library for language learning, that Mango. And so it provides this tool that we can sponsor, or I guess not sponsor, but advertise for programming and other services that our patrons really don't know a whole lot about because we don't have a really great tool to advertise that to them based off of their search terms in the catalog. If you'll go back to the presentation, thanks, Nick. So there's year 1 cost that we would propose and plan on paying for using a state grant that we receive from the Utah State Library every year, and then annually an annual service cost for service and maintenance for the system and for the server that we would then budget for in the general fund library budget ongoing. So again, we would propose that the mayor and council approve the service agreement with Aspen Discovery.
Be careful with the yearbook ones. You might find that Gordo did not go to school. So. All right, any questions or comments?
This is super exciting. Thanks for putting all the work and energy into it.
Definitely.
It'll be really cool.
Right, we're really excited. We think our patrons will appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yes, you're the library lady.
Okay. I move to approve the Aspen Discovery Sales Agreement.
Second. Got a motion by Councilmember Beck, a second by Councilman Argyle. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thanks.
Thank you, Mayor, Council.
Resolution 21-06, approving the municipal wastewater plan program self-assessment report for 2020. Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, this is another requirement from the state is update this plan annually, and it has to be done by resolution. And basically, this is a report on the condition of your sewer system, and it basically says that the treatment plant is worn out, and ready to be upgraded, which conveniently we're planning to upgrade it. So that's one thing. The other thing it talks about, there's quite a few old clay tile pipes in town that need to be replaced because of inflow. It's letting a lot of groundwater in, which is something we want to limit coming into the plant. Another thing it talks about is the financial stability of your wastewater enterprise fund, and talks about, well, here's the improvements that need to be done in your system. Can you afford them? And so it goes into some of that financial analysis, and it talks a little bit about the rate increase plan that we've discussed over the last several years in order to afford these improvements, and details those. One of the things that is important to note is because we've planned ahead for these improvements, and we started the rate increases several years ago, we're able to end at a lot lower rate than a lot of surrounding communities, and so we feel like we have a good plan for the sewer system, and just ask that you adopt it by resolution.
Good enough. Any questions, comments? Good enough. I would then entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 21-06, approving the Municipal Wastewater Planning Program Self-Assessment Report for 2020.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Nargile. This will be a roll call vote. Councilman Nargile.
Aye.
Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Scopes.
Aye.
That thing passes. All right. SWD North Sewer Lift Station Land Reimbursement Amendment.
Okay.
Agreed.
We have some people here for our sewer treatment plant CMGC contract, and we're wondering if you would mind moving that up so that they can get on their way back home.
Which one do you want?
It's the last item.
Well, the resolution?
No, second to last item, sorry.
Come on. We can do that. So we'll move to wastewater treatment plant, construction management, general contract, pre-construction, service contract with Alter Construction.
Okay.
Let's put it at the first. I would have moved it to the first for you.
I know, that would have been good planning. One of the things that we're kind of excited about, but we're also taking very seriously, is the biggest infrastructure project cost-wise that the city has ever done, and that is a $90 million state-of-the-art sewer treatment plant. We've never done a project even probably half of this cost before. So this is a big project for the city, and a big thing that we've been planning for quite some time. It wasn't an option for us with the nutrient problems in Utah Lake with the algae blooms, and with that came a lot more state regulation. Our current plant would be unable to meet these new regulations, and so looking to the future, we actually went through a proposal process and selected two engineering firms, JUB and Stantec, to help us master plan how we will redesign our treatment plant and come up with some basis of design that we then went out and we sent out a request for proposals to contractors to come on board early on in the design phase. The reason why we do this is because a contractor with their knowledge of construction techniques and the market and what can be done to save costs in building a new treatment plant can provide some invaluable support. So this is a great project, and it's a large project, And it's very important that you select a contractor that you can partner with to build it, a contractor that you trust to do a good job, to be fair, and that will leave you with a treatment plant that is easy to run and is done with a lot of quality. So we went through a pretty arduous process. We included the mayor and Brandon and Chad in this process of selecting this contractor. We received 5 or 6 proposals. These proposals came in, they were reviewed. We selected 2 of those proposals, Alder and Sunt, to come and interview. They came in, we went through a pretty intensive interview process with them, and by vote and rating, we were able to select Alder Construction to be the contractor that we'll partner with to get this built. We're excited about Alder Construction. They are a local contractor. By local, I mean Utah. As you can imagine, there's not a lot of contractors that build $90 million treatment plants. And so we got a lot of national looks at this. But Alder Construction has been selected to build the Provo treatment plant, and that is underway. And it is very similar. A lot of the same processes at Provo will be used in our plant. They're both MBR plants, so they have the filter system. And one thing that we really like about Alder is they will build this in Provo and then almost immediately come down and build it in Spanish Fork. So a lot of the learning that they'll have with the more modern techniques in construction and the modern equipment, they'll be able to have fresh in their minds and be able to apply that in Spanish Fork. And we just felt like they provided a really good team, and we're excited for you to meet them a little bit. And so I'd like to turn a little bit of time over to Eric Alder. He is the president of Alder Construction. I believe he's a 3rd generation president, if that's how it is. Maybe you can clarify that. But let him introduce him and his company to you a little bit, and then we'd ask that you vote to award the CMGC contract as presented to them, with the knowledge that the guaranteed maximum price for the actual construction of the plant will come later to you, and you will have the option to award or not award that. The way the CMGC contract works is Alder can self-perform or construct a lot of the aspects of the plant, which is good at this time when a lot of contractors are very busy. But they will also go out and they'll bid the different aspects of the plant, and then basically compete with those bids. And if a contractor, an outside contractor, can come in and do it for less, then they will hire that contractor and just manage the overall construction. And so what you're approving today really is what's called the pre-construction work on the CMGC contract. So this is Alder coming in with their staff and helping the city to, and JUB and Stantec, to design a very quality, cost-effective plant in a way that only a contractor can bring to the table. And so anyway, with that, maybe Eric, could you say a few things?
Well, good evening. Thank you for your time. I'm Eric Alder. I'm president of Alder Construction Company. I'm also here with Val Martin. He's he'll be the project manager on this project, so he'll be involved in a lot of that pre-construction aspect that Chris was talking about. We wanted to come down here. We wanted to make sure that we started this job out on the right foot. We certainly realize that this is a big project, and in fact, many of these cities and districts who we worked with, these are some of the biggest projects we do. I didn't realize it was the biggest by far that has been taking place, but you know, we take these projects very seriously. We've been at this for a long, long time. My grandfather started the company back in the 50s. At that time, he did a little bit of everything, and in 1961, he took a chance on a wastewater project up in North Salt Lake for the South Davis Sewer District. And it turned out to be a great project, and he continued to develop that arm of Alder Construction. And since that time, it's really been all we do. And as was said earlier, we're working with Provo up there, building a very similar project. We're up in Park City right now, doing a $80 million plus project up there. We're back in North Salt Lake, finishing another project at Riverton for the Jordan Basin Sewer District there. We built their wastewater plant about 10 years ago. That was another membrane MBR type facility that'll be very similar to what you build here. So we've got a great understanding of this type of infrastructure that's needed, and what's needed to put together big projects like this with the labor force that's required and the specialty contractors that are needed to be involved in these projects. Because this is a specialty market, and we've seen a lot of contractors come and go in this market and not be able to figure it out. And that's why Val's here. I mean, he's got a lot of experience. He's 20 plus years with Alder Construction. 10 more before that with heavy infrastructure. The superintendent we're bringing down here, his father was actually one of the first superintendents that worked with my grandfather to get this company started. He's been in the business like I am, just, since he was a kid, but he's got 35, 36 years or so under his belt as well. So we're excited about this project. We feel like it's, you got a great engineering team already that's on board. The city staff that we know is great staff. So we feel like this is really set up on the right foot to be a very successful project, so we're excited about it. But if there are questions I can answer about what we do or the CMG process, I know the city's done some of that on some other infrastructure, so it sounds like you're familiar with it. But any questions or maybe some comments or concerns or things, some objectives that we should be thinking about as we get into the planning process, let me know. But we're excited to be here, so thank you for the opportunity.
Anybody got any questions? No, just get her done, will you?
You got it.
All right,
Sure will.
hurry up.
Hurry up.
You're behind.
That's right. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Eric. Appreciate that. All right. Just on behalf of myself and Councilman Gordon and Councilman Argal, we've been through that whole process with them, so we got to know this company really well, and you've got our vote on that, so we're really there. So with that, I'd entertain a motion.
Mayor, can I make one comment real quick?
Yeah, just one.
I know probably this goes to more than just Chris, but when we talk about that we're spending $90 million in Spanish Fork City, and it's a very large amount, and through the planning and everything else that we've done to prepare for this, we've saved $11 million, probably more than that now. And our water rates have increased just a little bit, our sewer rates, in order to fund this plant, so that we're not, there's other cities around us, there's quite a few of them that are putting in brand new sewer plants, and their sewer rates have skyrocketed. And I think when this is done, our rates will still be very comparable and probably some of the lowest in the county, and I think that's very commendable. Chris, I know it's more than you and your team and everything else, but it just didn't happen overnight. It took some long-term planning, and I think it's important for the city to know that we just didn't flip a coin and say, hey, come, let's get this done. We took some time, we planned, and we prepared for this sewer plant because we knew we had to do it. It was old and we needed to replace it. But we just did it in such a, I guess the mayor would say, in such a Spanish Fork way, so that we can complete this plan in a proper way and keep our rates in a reasonable area. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. And we're excited to have you, Alder.
All right, with that, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the Alder Construction Manager's General Contractor Scope and Fee Proposal for the new wastewater treatment plant project.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Argal. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There you go.
Really appreciate those remarks from Councilman Argal. I would like to just say that Corey Pierce and his staff and Jared Johnson and his staff have done an outstanding job of going through this process and making sure. It's hard to spend $90 million responsibly. There's a lot of work in that, and it might sound fun to spend $90 million, but it actually is a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and Jared and Corey have done an outstanding job of taking us through that process to make sure that we do this right. So,
Good enough. All right, now where do you want me to go?
back to the, yes.
You already did F. So we're back to SUVSWD North Sewer Lift Station Land Purchase Reimbursement Agreement.
Yes, so it's been alluded to quite a bit in this meeting. We have a transfer station being constructed right here. We have a really large industrial project being constructed right here. We have Sunrock going in right here. And Utah County has started work on their county public works facility here. And so we're going to build a lot of infrastructure, a lot of roads, a lot of road improvements, new roads here and a new road here, and a lot of sewer, water, electric. There's just a lot going in. I think GWC said north of $13 million worth of infrastructure going in, which is really great for the industrial area of the city, which brings in jobs and some property tax. Part of what is needed for this all to work is a sewer lift station. And that sewer lift station is to be built here. And what would happen is this whole area, the sewer would flow to that, and then it would pump it up over to Main Street, where it would then go to the plant. If you could go to the next slide. So this is the location of the sewer lift station needed for this area. And the reason why the city's now involved, normally development pays for infrastructure, and impact fees reimburses them for the regional part of infrastructure. And that's being done here, except for the fact that this sewer lift station will support 60% of its use will be supporting existing businesses and agencies in Spanish Fork. And so we can't really make new growth pay for what is going to support existing Spanish Fork City customers. And so as far as the sewer lift station goes, the city is involved by having to pay 60% of its costs. And we've anticipated this for some time, and it's in the budget. And so what you have is a reimbursement agreement. The district was able to acquire the land needed for this lift station and an easement to run the force main. So all the sewer gravity feeds to a large wet well here, and then we pump out of the wet well through a force main over to Main Street. Well, it's a lot shorter path to go along Dry Creek to Main Street than it is to come straight south and then over to the east. And so that saves us a lot of money in pipe, but also over time we're pumping against a lesser head because we have less pipe and the frictions in those pipe that make us have to build bigger pumps to run it. So we save electricity, we save an initial cost of pumps, and an initial cost of pipes. Our Trails Master Plan calls for a trail to run along Dry Creek, and we're working with Springville to see if they can't, in their master plan, continue the trail all the way to Utah Lake, where the county has a master plan for a trail that will circumference the lake and connect in. So we think this will be a great trail as time goes on. But the main reason we want this trail to be built now is because it would provide us access to the force main pipe that we want to put underneath it. And if we have to do any maintenance on it, we can get some vehicles and equipment out there to maintain it. So at the end of the day, it actually will cost about the same to run the pipe and a new trail here as it would over here, but we get both infrastructure, both the trail and the pipe done all at once. So we kind of killed two birds with one stone, And then we benefit from the fact that our power costs and our pump sizing will be smaller over time. And so we kind of feel pretty good about this innovation. But the only way we could get it to work is if this property owner right here would cooperate and sell us the easement, sell us the land needed for the lift station. And after quite a bit of negotiation, we were able to get that deal done. The district was able to close on that land, and this is a reimbursement agreement for us paying that 60% to the district to pay them back. Now, if you look, just by way of note, this land just south of here is owned by the district. So this is where the transfer station is going to be built. So they control the land along Dry Creek through here. Maybe if you could go back one slide. And so here's where the transfer station is. So right now we're reimbursing the district for 60% of the easement to here. We can run the force main through here because it's on the district land, and then we can run it through here because it's on county land. And so this will tie up all the land we need to do this lift station and the force main. Any questions?
If there is no questions, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve SUBSWD North Sewer Lift Station Land Purchase Reimbursement Agreement.
Motion by Councilman Argal.
Second.
Second by Councilman Stokes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, landfill monitoring vent project.
Okay, the old city landfill, sorry. The old city landfill was sealed up before modern regulation. And so one of the things that we want to do is make sure that it never has an impact on the areas around it. We've done a lot of testing, and that testing has showed that it's not currently having an impact on the areas around it. But right now, we have an opportunity to do some monitoring on it that we feel like it would be wise to take advantage of. And that is right now UMPA, which is the power supply agency that we are a part of, is building a bunch of solar panels, a solar farm on top of it. And as they do so, they're putting a fence around it and kind of an access road all around where the fence is. What we are proposing with this project is to put some monitoring vents down all around this, the inside of this wall. And that will allow us to monitor methane gases and things like that to make sure that they're not building up or becoming a problem, and maybe cut off any built up pressure that could cause a problem in the future. And so while all of the solar panels are being built, we've worked with some environmental consultants and for both landfills and for monitoring, and have come up with a design that we feel pretty good about that will go down, and they'll just monitor any gases or things that could be causing a problem in the future, and allow us to keep tabs on it and just make sure that there are no problems going into the future in this old landfill area. And that's what this agreement is for.
Perfect. Any questions? If not, oh, sorry. Oh, nope, okay. Nope. If there's none, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve landfill monitoring vent project.
Got a motion by Councilman Argal.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Beck. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, Resolution 07, Utah County Interlocal Agreement 2021 Elections.
It's so exciting to be the last thing on the item on the agenda. We'll go this quick. A little bit of history, and everyone left back at home. You can remember the days of doing the elections when you used to go to your elementary school in your neighborhood and vote. And when those elections were done back in the 90s and the early 2000s, the cost of those elections were about $5,000 to $8,000 per election. So if there's a primary or a general election, so you'd have two, sometimes we'd only have one. As the country has accepted and kind of have a standard of voter mail or voting with the ballot that's mailed to their home, this has evolved over the last 6 years, and if you watch the last presidential election, it's becoming more and more an expected way to vote. Our Utah legislature passed a law that said that Utah will conduct all of their elections by mail. There isn't an opportunity to go back to the school, so that option isn't available anymore. So the last two elections, so for our municipal election of 2015 and 2017, the county conducts our election for the most part because they are the registration person, the entity. So when a person registers as a voter, it's through the county, it's not through the city. So they control that registration aspect. So they also get a voter permit at the post office, which is substantially discounted on mailing because they have the permit. Cities don't get to have that permit. It's only the registration agent that gets that permit from the post office. Maybe the legislation can change that, but it's probably a federal rule. So last year, or 2 years or 4 years ago in 2015, the cost of our elections done by the county was charged to us at, let me make sure I got the right number, at about $21,000 for one election, so we didn't have a primary. And then fast forward 2 more years, that election cost $31,000 2 years ago. So now we're in the election year again this year, and kind of there's a rate per voter, per registered voter is how the county decides our rate. And so this year, that rate per voter is going to be $2.25 per active voter. So they go through their thing and try to glean out those that have died, at least we hope that they do that, and only have that populace. So what this resolution is now is to talk about having the county administer our election again like they have the last 2 years, and they propose inside their proposal is $2.25 per voter. Well, our town's growing, and that means we have more registered or active voters, and so now we have almost 21,000 voters in our city, so 21,200 at that rate makes our elections cost almost $48,000 for each one. They have given us a resolution or an agreement. Vaughn has put it into resolution form, and the last couple days I've been trying to gather information from the county on what makes up that $2.25 and some other items that are inside the agreement. And I am not quite ready to adopt it today, but it's on the agenda for today. A couple items inside the agenda. It talks about ranked choice voting, and as I've talked, it says it's just one of the options that are there, and depends on what our city would like to do. Some cities that I've talked to today said that they went and edited that part out and said that we don't even want the word ranked choice voting in our agreement with them, even though it's still an option of the two. There's a couple other items that I think that Vaughn and Seth and I would like to probably look at before we adopt this. And so I would recommend that we table this till next meeting. The original agreement said it needed to be adopted before April 1st, but in talking with the county, their real deadline is April 15th. And so they're going to let us go. And so we'll have a council meeting on April 2nd. So Seth, I don't know if you have any clarification of what you'd like to do.
One thing that we've learned through some conversations with the county and other cities is that because our price, I think, has gone up since the 2017 election. It was like $1.35 per voter. Then in the 2019 election, it was $1.85 per voter, and then this one's at $2.25. So it's gone up 66% over the last, from the first election until now, which is a pretty big jump. And you would think that just the increase in per voter, because we've gone up, I think, about 3,000 voters each election cycle, which we don't pay per ballot returned, we pay per registered voter. So we have about 21,000 registered voters, and I think we'll probably get back 6,000 if our trend continues. We'd get back about 6,000 ballots, but we'll pay $2.25 per registered voter. One of the things the county is saying is we've been getting a deal. It's not that their prices have gone up. We've been getting a deal. They didn't know the true cost of the elections before, and so they weren't billing it out correctly. They've been subsidizing our city elections, and this is more the true cost. They think it may come in at like $2.23 per voter, and so the contract is written as a not to exceed. So if it comes in less, we'd pay less. If it comes in more, then we'd hit the cap and not pay more. But I think to Mr. Clark's point, we need a little bit more information from them before either he and I are comfortable. I don't know what Bond's review of things are. He and I haven't chatted about it, but we need to take a little bit more time and get a little bit more information.
Okay. Well, one question I have with that is the true cost of the election. Are they looking at that with the $1 million or $3 million that they spent on the new voting machines and things, or is that just actual cost excluding the millions that they just
That's my question
spent?
to them today was, I'd like to see the breakdown. They just give us a flat number.
Right.
But in our last two invoices we got from them of the prior years, it doesn't specify that equipment in it. That is the cost of postage, the cost of printing, and the cost of manpower to man the machinery and the voting centers and stuff like that, just to administrate it. So they do have equipment, but they do pay a testing fee for the company to come in and test it, and they have, to make sure it's accurate.
Right.
So.
And based on our direction from you and previous conversations about the ranked choice voting, we're not supportive of any kind of effort on their part to push us toward a ranked choice voting. And if there's any kind of legislation by price structure toward that, then I think that's something we'll push back on and be able to report to you on. But we both have kind of surmised maybe that's there, but we haven't actually found that yet.
So basically, you want us to table it till
The
next meeting, or?
Next meeting.
So just next meeting?
Yep.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion to table this resolution till next meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Scobes, a second by Councilmember Beck. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Move we go into closed session for reasonably imminent litigation and land transaction.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, second by Councilman Scobes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you for everyone that was here and in TV land.